Good morning, friends. Ash here, NPNP News. It's December 29th, 2025, and I'm sorry for my long break, but I ended up getting the flu, and that took many days to get rid of, and then I needed just some time to myself to kind of kick back and see where we are, what's going on in the world we live in, right? Seeing that silver was gone on a crazy tear, right? It was up as high as $80, I believe, the other day. And now it's down $8 in one day. It was up almost $8 in one day. Now it's down $8 in one day. And platinum down $300 in one day right now. Palladium down $298, still to pretty high levels, right? 1650. Platinum is at 2,128, but it was at 2,000, almost 500. So you're seeing some people either selling off or I don't know. I've never seen silver do what it's doing right now. I've never seen silver go up $5 in a day. And what this broker was watching, the silver market in Hang Seng index in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong silver market, and he was watching the Comex market in the United States. And what he realized is there's a $5 spread at one point between silver and those two markets, which is not supposed to be there. Those numbers are supposed to be the same. You can get a gold Bitcoins now. So they actually made a Bitcoin. You can hold it in your hand. It's just it's made out of gold and silver, right? It's not the actual Bitcoin itself. So massive down day for silver after many up days, after 7. And that's why you saw silver go up so big, because people realized the spread. Wait a minute, these people can see us. They could see what we're doing. We're in the open, right? Somebody's left it so we're in the open now, and they could see that number. That it's $5. Now, if you're playing in that $5 spread, you can make quite a bit of money, I'd assume. Right? If I'm buying the silver contracts cheaper in the Hong Kong market, well, your silver price is $5 less in the United States. That's a big deal. At one point, the reporter noticed that the $5 spread between the price of silver and on the Hang Seng index as opposed to the Comex. How is that possible? Is that why silver went up over $4 that day, which was like a while back now? You see, we're still playing in the same areas where we were 5 days ago. Now silver's down to $71, I think. We're going to talk about BCCI Bank. We're going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to talk about, was Jeffrey Epstein maybe running guns as well? Was he a multiple player, right? Was he doing multiple things for multiple people? It looks like he's one of those one-stop shop guys. Hey, you need a young girl? You want to come to my island and play around? You need some weapons, maybe? You want to get involved with a Ponzi scheme with my boy Hoffenberg and me? We can do that. Because remember, Epstein's involved in that in a massive scheme with Hoffenberg, right? He's in a Ponzi scheme where he never gets touched, and Hoffenberg goes to jail for like 18 years. Remember, and then Hoffenberg gets out of jail and he dies soon after. Some of my listeners were saying, why, when POTUS went on and did his television speech, why didn't he talk about Venezuela, Semitic voter software, or any of that, Maduro? He hardly spoke about any of this stuff. Why didn't he talk about Serbia, the U.S. vote, data flips, involvement of Venezuela in 72 countries, voter fraud for profit? Why didn't he talk about that? It's a good question. You would have thought that he would have talked about it. So I wanted to play you that Santos Bonacci. I found that clip where he's talking about the Collins family, who actually runs the United States. He's claiming it's the Collins family. So let's watch this short clip from YouTube of Santos Bonacci, you can watch his channel, Mr. Astrotheology, if you're interested. He's a super interesting guy. I want to talk about a guy that knows a lot of stuff. Here's a guy. Right? I like to listen to people that are smarter than me, that know more than me, and I consider this person a both of those things, as far as I'm concerned with myself. So here's Santos Bonacci talking about the Collins family.
Guess who runs the United States? Everyone says, oh, it's the Rockefellers. It's the Collins family. Now, who are the Collins? Well, there's a fellow called Christopher Columbus, who in Spanish is called Cristobal Colon. He came from one of the papal families called the Colonna family. And they were the enemies of the Orsini family, who considered themselves to be the Maxima family. The Rothschilds and the Windsors come from the Orsini family. The Orsini and the Colonna were fighting in the Middle Ages to be popes. One pope finally comes along.
So this is the opposite of the Orsinis, right? Now, the Orsinis are a super important family. You have to know who they are if you want to know what's going on in the long game of this thing, right? These are some of the most powerful families in Spain and Italy, right? That are fighting each other, that hate each other's guts, and are fighting each other for control of the new world that they're finding is out there, right? With the Americas, who's gonna own that? Who's gonna own the United States and Canada and these areas, and who's gonna really prosper the most? And they all wanted it bad. Bad.
History and says, right, you've got to stop this fighting amongst yourselves. He said, one of your family has to marry one of their family, and you have to make amends, and we have to make a papal bull, and we have to work together. And from then on, the Collins family becomes Columbia.
So what do? They make a papal bull and force a marriage.
District of Columbia, the Knights of Columbus, Columbia Pictures, British Columbia, Columbia in South America, and the Collins family still runs America. Thank you, Christopher Collins, otherwise known as Christopher Columbus. Yes.
So do you get it now? It's all about Columbus, Columbia, right? All this stuff is right there in your face and you never saw it. They put it right there in your face, but you never saw it, right? Trump says we have the makings of a deal with Russia, Ukraine. I mean, they've been saying this for years. So is it really the Collins family? You know, that's one of them. Paysor was the other. And these guys said, hey, let's come over and just start buying up huge amounts of land, as much as we can, right? We got all kinds of rubies and diamonds and crap that we could... Here's a couple of rubies to the prince. Go over there and just, here's some diamonds and rubies and gold and all kinds of shit. Just go over there and make a company up and start buying everything up. Virginia company, right? Whatever that company, that earliest company was. And just start buying it all up. Now, Mike Benz really is right on the cusp of finding out, of really giving you the full picture of Epstein. I think he's only doesn't have maybe one or two pieces of information, and he's got to have the whole thing. I tried to email him. Well, no, I tried to actually respond on a Twitter to his story about this story, which is, wow, is this the Rosetta Stone that explains Epstein's vast wealth and intelligence ties? So he goes into the deeper depths of it, right? He goes beyond Hoffenberg. And what you start to realize is that it looks like Epstein is doing something else, as well as, he's good at moving money around for certain people, right? He may be dealing arms. He may be doing something of that nature as well, or facilitating those arms deals. Like as a facilitator, right? I know some people, you know some people. I said that is a must-watch, that video or that article, and I pulled it up here somewhere. So this is the Rosetta Stone that explains Epstein's vast wealth. This is a PJ Media article that came out on December the 22nd, 2025, and I'm going to read part of it because it's important. It's important because Mike Benz is right at the cusp of figuring out the full picture. He just doesn't have one critical piece of information, or maybe more, but he's close. And what that piece of information that he doesn't have, of course, is Chiliad, right, and Christine Maxwell. He doesn't have that piece of the picture. And when you plug in that piece of information to what Mike Benz has, it's pretty much 99% of the full picture becomes available, which is that, yeah, this guy's involved with CIA. He's involved with moving, young women around the world and kids, younger kids, right? Because now you're seeing the pictures come out of him on the plane with much, much younger children that you're not sure whose kids those are, right? Kids that are under 10, under 12, under 13 years old now. Where before it was, okay, these girls are, yeah, they're young, but they're young adults. They're 16, 17, 15, whatever. They're not under 10. And now you're realizing that when you keep seeing these pictures of Ghislaine Maxwell wearing military fatigues, and you start to realize something. What is going on here? Why is she meeting with the head of certain countries? Why is she wearing military fatigues as if she's a pilot? Because she is a pilot, right? She can fly helicopters and possibly planes too. We're not sure. If the latest info about Epstein is accurate, the debt financier didn't just have ties to the CIA. He allegedly brokered gun running and other illicit deals for the Langley-based intelligence agency and others. First as a junior broker at Wall Street's Bear Stearns, and later through the disgraced Bank of Credit and Commerce International, or BCCI Bank, which we're going to go into in more detail a little bit later. While such connections have long been speculated about, most notably in Whitney Webb's One Nation Under Blackmail, Volumes 1 and 2, former Trump-era State Department lawyer Mike Benz says that this is the first time he has ever seen evidence that Bear Stearns, which collapsed during the 2008 financial crisis and was later acquired by J.P. Morgan Chase, was, quote, actively clearing BCCI trades and laundering weapons payments during the very years Epstein worked there, quote unquote. The BCCI was a notorious bank that operated as a global clandestine banking system for international spy agencies. BCCI is reputed to have been involved in, quote, some of the most sensitive intelligence operations of the Reagan-Bush years, unquote. The bank was closed in the early 90s due to its shady connections. Benz has speculated before that Epstein's ties to intelligence agencies came from his proximity to the Iran-Contra affair, but recent information connects the financier and human trafficker to intelligence agencies before and after the secret and illegal deal to sell arms to embargoed Iran, and then used the money to help the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. The CIA Southern Air Transport is also connected. So we looked into Southern Air Transport. Now we're dealing with BCCI. This is all in going back to the Iran-Contra affair, which is why you saw that Trump was having that secret meeting with Mike Wallace and all these different people on Maxwell's father's yacht, right, the Lady Ghislaine. We know that Trump knows her father. We know he knows Ghislaine. The question that we're not 100% sure of is what is Epstein's connection to Christine Maxwell, which the two of them have never been seen together as far as I'm concerned. Of course, Christine Maxwell is the sister of Ghislaine Maxwell, who for a time is the CEO and is running a company called Chiliad, right? Which is supposed to be a one-stop information shop, in-house, where all the secretive records of all different agencies are going to be kept, right? This is what they were trying to build after 9/11 happened, so that this would never happen again, right? That agencies would share information together, and that the CIA could never withhold all the information from the FBI, and the FBI couldn't withhold information from the CIA. Right, that's the key to this thing. That's where they're plugged all the way in, because once Christine Maxwell gets that position and she's the CEO and she has access to multitudes of secretive records, you have a British agent or somebody who's an agent of another country now involved inside the United States critical infrastructure in a company called Chiliad, which he has no business running. That's the key revelation that's going to come out. That's what Mike Benz needs to understand. I don't think he knows that part of it yet. And the problem is there's not much information about that time. And most of it's been scrubbed in what we've looked into, right? Mike Benz needs to look into Chiliad, Christine Maxwell, and the connection between, if any, between Christine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, which we don't have, as far as I can tell, much information on, if any. Haven't seen a picture of the two of them at anything. And of course, she doesn't go to all the parties. She's behind the scenes, right? But this family, there's something bigger there. We know that. Benz has speculated before that Epstein's ties to intelligence agencies came from his proximity to the Iran-Contra affair, but recent information connects the financier and human trafficker to intelligence agencies before and after the secret and illegal deal to sell arms to embargoed Iran and then use the money to help the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. Right? The only reason that is discovered is because one of the flights crashes, right? That's going into Colombia with the weapons. And one of the pilots turns out to be an American citizen, former somebody, maybe CIA, and he's injured, and that blows the whole lid off the thing. And then, of course, there's the Iran-Contra affair is looked into more, and it's basically almost tied all the way back to Reagan, of course, but Reagan in the end admits, I didn't know anything about this, right? They pin it mostly on people like Ollie North and those guys. Barry Seal is killed. Of course, one of the major drug smugglers who's smuggling the cocaine into the United States through Mena, Arkansas, right? Who's the governor of Arkansas at the time that's going on? A man named Bill Clinton, who would later be president of the United States. In a video which you can see below, Benz goes through recent stories and patterns of associations that he believes link Epstein to the so-called Safari Club, consortium of spy agencies and gun runners that included figures such as Adnan Khashoggi. Those deals he believes would also explain Epstein's vast source of wealth, right? That could be how he's making his early money, right? He does a couple of these deals, he puts it together, like that other guy, remember, who in the shootout in Vegas, that guy also, there was an allegation, may have been a gun runner for some other people getting guns. He had an incredible amount of weapons in this room, right, where he's opening fire, allegedly out of the hotel room. The Safari Club was a gauzy pre-1976 alliance of spy agencies believed to be comprised of pre-revolutionary Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, France, and the American CIA, with tangential links to Israeli intelligence. This is it, the key to Epstein. Bear Stearns put him on BCCI trades in 1979 as it made millions helping the CIA, Brits, and Israelis disguise covert cash by clearing $13 billion with BCCI, a CIA money laundering bank. Epstein simply developed that clientele and career niche. Right, so they gave him this stuff, right? They gave it to him. They said, work in here, make your bones, make some money. And then what happens later? They give him, hey, this guy will give you a mansion that's worth $80 million for nothing, for $1. Right? We'll hook you right up. Benz believes Epstein went out on his own after leaving Bear Stearns and ran all of his intelligence deals through BCCI. Those intelligence ties are believed to explain why, when Epstein was busted for his underage human trafficking sex slavery ring, then Florida U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta is alleged to have said that he gave Epstein a sweetheart plea deal because, quote, he belonged to intelligence, right? That's what Acosta had spoken of before, right? That he was warned off by a higher person up in the agency that this guy belongs to us. He's an intelligence asset. Leave him alone. In other words, do not touch. Right? Squash that case. We're not going to allow it to go forward. This guy's too important to us doing other stuff. We're going to ignore this. Ben cited a recent New York Times report that broke down some but not all of the intelligence connections. Indeed, the paper said that at Bear Stearns, quote, Epstein was in fact not a normal employee, but rather than attributing as well to intelligence ties to his role as a financial operative moving money for global intelligence agencies, the newspaper concluded that it came from Epstein being a prodigious manipulator and liar. Both can be true. The New York Times wasn't buying it, however. Abundant conspiracy theories hold that Epstein worked for spy services and ran a lucrative blackmail operation, but we found a more prosaic explanation for how he built a fortune. A relentless scammer, he abused expense accounts, engineered inside deals, and demonstrated a remarkable knack for separating seemingly sophisticated investors and businessmen from their money. Yeah, it could have been just multiple, right? He's running a fucking Ponzi scheme and he gets away with it. That can get you a huge amount of money. That's probably how he got a lot of his seed cash. He sets up Hoffenberg, sets him up. He goes to jail for 18 years. He's got the leftover cash. He's got assets. He's got people that he knows within the government and within certain areas of the world now. He's got, he's got ins at Bear Stearns. That's how he moves up so quick. The Times contends that Epstein used women and eventually underage females as deal sweeteners on Wall Street. The Times believes Epstein's eventual financial dealings with Les Wexner, the billionaire who built brands like The Limited and Victoria's Secret, quote unquote, began after, quote, the two were introduced by Wexner's friend Robert Meister, an insurance executive who happened to sit next to Epstein on the plane to Palm Beach. Meister suggested that Wexner get in touch with Epstein for financial advice. After that, Epstein was a made man. Benz doesn't believe that it was that prosaic, however. He picked apart the New York Times piece published earlier this month by connecting former Bear Stearns CEO Ace Greenberg to Epstein, which he says explains everything. Guys, we just broke the entire Jeffrey Epstein story. It explains Epstein's meteoric rise. It explains how he moved up in the company so quickly. It explains why everyone was so charmed by him. Hint, not because of his charm. It explains how he got all those huge clients so quickly. It explains how he, in 1981, in 1982, he's already meeting with major CIA, MI6, Saudi intelligence officials. He's meeting with Doug Lee, Stan Pottinger, Adnan Khashoggi, Middle Eastern sheikhs. He believes Epstein was working intelligence deals before he left Bear Stearns and later on his own through BCCI. It's all very intriguing. Watch and see if you don't agree. So you could watch, I don't want to play the whole video of the Mike Benz. Let's see how long it is.
BCCI was
Yeah, so it's 35 minutes. So you can go watch the Mike Benz piece at your leisure. It's a very interesting piece. I suggest that everybody watch it. It's 35 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much more time, but it goes into BCCI Bank, it goes into Bear Stearns, it goes into Epstein now, and that's like one of the pieces I think that Mike is missing, and it's not any of his own fault. He just didn't stumble upon it the way I did. Was that the Chiliad, right? You got to go all the way back to post 9/11 because this is what part of the reason 9/11 was brought in, right? It was to not just dispose of a lot of paper records that were in those buildings and knock the towers down because it was full of asbestos that they didn't want to remove. That's a whole other story, right? There was a lot of reasons for those to come down. It was a terror event that they needed to move us forward into the next coming of what they were going to bring onto us, right? What they were going to unleash onto us, which was the COVID, which was the fake 15-minute cities, which was, right, control of the human species, control of your money, control of your travel, control of you, control of your assets. So that's a super interesting article. It gives you much clearer idea of who Epstein was. He was, I believe, a CIA asset from way back in the 80s who was used to facilitate certain arms deals with people like Khashoggi, with others, right? There were, if you look at the what was that movie called? The Lord of War with, what's his name? Nicolas Cage, right? That's another guy that's sort of like what maybe an Epstein was. Of course, he had assets. Only most of the stuff that person was dealing with was selling weapons to different dictators, right? But of course, Epstein's a different animal. He can get you human beings. He can get you probably drugs, weapons. He can launder money for you as well as the other peccadillos he can satisfy for people who have certain, let's just say that people who have certain peccadillos that wouldn't be accepted in mainstream society, he can fulfill those for certain people, right? New Epstein files reveal sickening photos of women with vile Lolita messages scrawled on their bodies, Daily Mail. You also saw photos of him with young children under the age of 10, right? On those planes. Whose kids were those? Where were their parents? Were they there with them or not? And if not, why not? Corey Feldman then came out and claimed he was molested by the late Corey Haim while making the 1987's The Lost Boys. I had heard him make that sort of comment like that, Haim had said, hey, let's, fool around, let's mess around with each other. Like, this is what a lot of guys do out here, but that doesn't, that sounds odd to me. That sounds like something that happened to somebody who was already hurt by. I do believe that Charlie Sheen had something to do with raping him. Haim. That was the allegation. I do believe that's true. But, you know, when you listen to Haim, both the Coreys at the end of that, when they're having that big blow up, they both admit to each other, we were both getting abused by the same, you know, people around us. There was nothing we could really do. If your parents are involved in it and are okay with it, right? And Corey Feldman's mother was a drug addict, right? Or Haim's mother, one of those mothers was. She was on the set doing coke, and, you know, she didn't know what was going on with him. Now, this video came out a while back. It's Epstein running around. It's AI created with Epstein, and he's running around taking photos with all the alleged pedophiles, right? It was a pretty damning video. I have it somewhere. I'll see if I can find what I did with it. The meth curse of Hollywood's rich kids, Nepo babies who've battled addiction to drug that robbed Reiner's son Nick spiral as he's charged with parents' brutal murders. So this kid was involved with meth, which is a horrible, horrible drug. And if you're going to get addicted to something, that's probably one of the worst things you could think about, besides heroin, fentanyl, crocodile. Alcohol's a bitch. I've seen alcohol ruin more lives than I care to mention. Along with heroin, two horrific drugs just that you never should really ever want to try. I mean, a lot of people like alcohol. Here's the Rob Reiner roast in 2000 if you want to watch it, where they're talking about some real nasty stuff. That Rob Reiner was allegedly letting his friend slip into bed with Nick at night, you know. Yeah, that's the rumors that these guys do with each other's kids. Maybe their wives too, I don't know. Imagine having to let some rich fucker sleep with your daughter and there's nothing you could do about it. Do you want to be in a world like that? I don't think so. Not just to be rich and famous. I don't care enough about that. You couldn't pay me enough. But some of these people, that's the price they got to pay, apparently. Is that why Nick was so messed up? Because these kids are getting abused by their parents in the system that they're in, and they can't say anything about it, or their parents and them will be killed? Bill Clinton stunned aides with push to bring Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell as guests to the king's wedding, right? They bring this guy to the Moroccan king's wedding with them, right? Just to give him some panache. Why not? What does he have on Bill that he lets him do that? Well, it's alleged that he's bringing women to the White House for Bill Clinton, remember? That Epstein is. He's doing it right in front of everybody, and nobody notices it, right? Trump reclassifies marijuana, defying dire Republican warnings of brain drain that will embolden China. This should have been done probably 25 years ago. Would have allowed access and people to create medicinal marijuana cures, or not cures, but things that help people like who have Parkinson's and or horrible diseases like that. If you ever watch like this, somebody with really bad Parkinson's take a couple of CBD oil drops and just lay down on their couch, and they're twitching and their emotions will calm down. There's no other drug I've ever seen that can do that. That's homeopathic drug, where it's just a plant that occurs in nature. I've never seen any other drug do that in such a pain-free and easy way, right? Just take these drops under your tongue, a few CBD oil drops, and lay down, and about 10-20 minutes later you're at ease, right? You're not. Imagine walking around twitching all day long and you can't control your bodily movements. You know how exhausting that is? Or like to be Michael J. Fox, how exhausting it is to all day long just constantly be moving and you can't control it. Trust me, that is a torture you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. I was thinking of the movie Highlander, where Highlander keeps chopping off the other Highlanders' heads. And eventually he's the only one left, right? He's the one. And then you got all the power, right? Is that what's happening? Somebody was talking about the fact that these other timelines that have been created by whatever group has been maybe illicitly time traveling for a long time, creating other time loops and timelines that have to at some point die out and reconvene with the main timeline, right? There's one timeline that's the real one. Does that mean that the former selves of you that exist on those timelines will then recoalesce into the main timeline, which means that all of a sudden humans are gonna, when they realize their true power, we're gonna become like superhuman because we always were. I mean, if God's gonna create a group of people in His image, you think He's gonna make them all fucked up the way we are? No, I don't think so. He's gonna make them pretty freaking powerful. Of course, He's not gonna make them as powerful as Prime Creator. He's gonna give each of those people a piece of Prime Creator's power, right? Which could mean you might be able to co-create inside that matrix or inside the world that co-creators created for you, right? To an extent. You might have certain gifts and powers that you might be able to be a multi-dimensional entity instead of being one-dimensional. In other words, I can only be in the third dimension right now. But what if you can also be in the astral plane also? The ether and other places, that other dimensions possibly, right, that exist. PM Albanese announces hate speech crackdown after Bondi Beach shooting. You need to remove radicalized Muslims from your country. I would do that. And I can see that some countries might actually start banning people of certain religion from their country, like Poland might be doing soon. UN command says armistice grants it authority over the access to the DMZ. I think this is talking about North and South Korea. Yeah. Interstellar object's heartbeat changes as it makes closest approach to Earth in just hours. That was a week ago. What happened with the AI Atlas fear porn? Nothing, right? Did AI Atlas show up and say, hey, bro, what's up, man? I told them, roll up, pull up, right? Roll up, dude. What do you got? Let's see. You want to talk? You want to fight? What do you want to do? Hopefully not want to fight, right? We're not standing in a warlike posture. You rolled through our hood, right? You rolling through our neighborhood. And they did it respectful, right? They didn't come at us. They didn't try to change us. They didn't try to hurt us. They didn't try to put us in fear. No. It was our own people on this planet that tried to put us in fear of that, of them, right? Why would an advanced species just come here and wipe us out for when we're in the when we're in our ascension? That probably is not going to be allowed. A group of people who are going through their ascension process are some people that need to be helped, right? Because they're vulnerable right now. Going through something we've never been through before as a human species. We're going into the next density together. How are we going to do that? Well, there's a group of people that are around that want to make sure you never do it, right? Which is why they're doing all this chaos stuff. All the shootings, the deaths. And that's how they're doing it. They're just going into clone bodies. They're alien groups, and they're just killing everybody, and then they leave, right? It's not even MK Ultra, man. It's way beyond that. It's just people jumping into bodies and doing it, and then they're jumping back out. There's people can spawn in and spawn right back out. I've seen them spawn in and spawn out. You know, like people keep saying when they're watching Ari's show, hey, New York looks like the GTA 6 lobby, dude. It is GTA 6. What do you think they got GTA 6 from? It's from this, the Matrix that you're in. They just copied it and made it look different in a game. So it's a game within a game within a game. Yeah, it looks fucking good. Because you're living in it. Right? When you live in New York and you look at the GTA 6 game, you realize it's similar, right? I can walk through the city and interact with certain people. I can go up to this guy and say, hey, fuck you, man. Right? He's going to go, hey, fuck you. Right? Or he's going to go, hey, asshole, motherfucker. Right? He's going to say something, pissed off, because I said fuck you to his face, right? Or I can go up to this guy and say this or this and this and do that, right? It's the same thing. If I punch this guy in the face, I get a star level, right? The cops are looking for me. If I go too crazy, I start shooting up Times Square in the game or whatever, right? I get 2 or 3 star level. Maybe 4. And then everybody's looking for you. Wiz Khalifa's in trouble. He got sentenced to 9 months in a Romanian prison for smoking weed at the 2024 music festival. You should have known the rules where you were. They don't look... This isn't California, bro. This isn't New York. Right? This is Romania, and they don't look too kindly about smoking weed over there. They don't like it. Imagine if he had like some more serious drugs. Could have been looking at years in jail. Now, will this probably get squashed? Maybe. Maybe not. 9 months in a Romanian prison, that'll sober your ass right the fuck up. Trump signs an EO designating Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas as federal holidays. They should be, right? You shouldn't have to work on Christmas freaking Day. Nobody should. You should be home with your family, relaxing, right? Everything can relax for a day or two. The world's not going to end, right? And the day after also, why not? But no other holiday gets that. Does, I don't know, does Kwanzaa get that? Does Hanukkah get that? I don't get 8 days off if I'm Jewish and I celebrate Hanukkah, right? You don't get 8 days off from work. I don't remember that. I don't remember any Jewish person getting off from Hanukkah from work. Maybe. If it's a Jewish business, they might, right? But if your boss isn't Jewish and you say, hey, can I get Hanukkah off? He's going to probably tell you no. Unless he's very, maybe one day. Okay, I'll give you 1 day, right? But it's part of your sick days. Australians arrest more Bondi violent plotters. Looks like another Islamist cell. It looks like there was more people. These guys had tennis ball bombs that they didn't use also. So it was lucky that guy did take that, because it looks like these people were going to be allowed to do a certain amount of stuff before they got taken down, right? Because if the cops don't try to move towards them, and I get it, they have long rifles and you don't, but so what? You got a weapon. You got more cops. You could have flanked them and taken them out quicker if you wanted to, right? This guy's up on a bridge. He can't 360 degrees protect himself. He's actually, the guy picked like a stupid, he picked an elevated position, but it was also a stupid position to be a sniper from. Why? Because it's easy to spot you. Most snipers don't want to ever be seen, which is why they pick a location that's where they can hide in. They take a shot or some shots and then they might relocate, right? Because they don't want to get seen. Somebody might have heard where that shot came from under that building. We need to relocate now. I don't want to be spotted by artillery spotters or people, another sniper who might take me out. That's why you hear snipers sometimes talking about, we got to relocate, right? We can't stay still all the time unless I have a very good hide. Or I can shoot at people not seen by the outside at all. Maybe I'm shooting out of a building, a hole in a building, right from deep inside the building, and you can't see me. Trump's U.S. CIS seeks to strip naturalized citizenship from immigration fraudsters. So there's all kinds of fraud going on in the United States. It's really a country that was set up for fraud in a sense, from its inception. If you look at the 1800s period, what is the United States doing? It's importing vast amounts of opium into the United States and creating different elixirs from it that its populace begins to become addicted to, right? Especially housewives and some children. A whole generation of multiple generations of people are wiped out by these drugs, by the way, that the government is enriching itself by producing. 18 states to restrict soda and candy from SNAP. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to get like junk food with your SNAP card. You should just be able to get food that's good and healthy for your kids to eat. Regular food, chicken, beef, bread, milk, stuff like that. Cereal, rice, beans, different products, canned goods. But it shouldn't be, Pepsi and candy bars and shit like that for your kids. Because a lot of, if you go into the Midwest, man, there's a lot of overweight people. I've been there, dude, many times. More than once, actually. And, trust me, you roll through certain areas, you're like, wow, these people are huge. Everywhere I look, there's a massive person. Why are you eating all this crap? Why are you feeding your kids all this shit? So a week ago, silver was at $66. It went as high as 80 less than a week later. That's insane. If you would have said, hey, guess what? When it was at 66, it's going to 80 with a bullet, I wouldn't have said that. But if you're going up $6, $7 in a day, all right, let's see if the silver's paring back or if it's just going to be down 6 or 7 all day today. We'll see. It looks like it's down 750 now. It's going even worse. 72.50 though still. That's pretty. And that's down 7? You're saying it was $80? It was $80 yesterday. So if you had a short on silver for today, you're loving life. It's down $8 on the day. You could buy that contract, sell out, and make that money, right? Super volatile silver and gold market right now. And everything. Platinum down $346. Palladium down $314 on the day. And these are huge down days. These are great buying opportunities is what that is. John Bolton, Antifa, and Smartmatic all hit in rapid-fire indictments. So there are some people are getting indicted. Smartmatic is indicted, finally. They're the ones that made the fake, right? The system, the Dominion system. The software that ran in those was Smartmatic, right? And we know that Dominion sold some of their patents to HSBC years ago. We did that dig. Well, who owns HSBC? Well, part of who owns HSBC is China. Right? Hong Kong Bank. Well, China owns part of it, which means that China owns part of Dominion's patents. Jeffrey Epstein, Uranium One, Clinton Foundation, and the FBI. Mike Benz connects the dots. Here's another Mike Benz article. So this is sort of talking about the same thing that he was just talking about, in the other article for PJ Media. So Mike Benz is one of the few guys that put almost all the pieces together. Like I said, he doesn't have all the information. Nobody does. But I think if you plug in that piece of information of Christine Maxwell, I might try to email Mike. I don't know him personally. I don't want to bother him. But I don't know if he saw my response to his tweet about the article, but I was trying to tell him that, yeah, you might want to look into Christine Maxwell and Chiliad. That's part of the piece of that equation, I think, that helps you fully have a more fuller picture of what Jeffrey Epstein's doing, because we don't know what his connection is, if it anything, to Christine Maxwell. Right? That's a blurrier issue. Ukraine says it carried out first ever underwater drone strike on a Russian sub in Novorossiysk. Subsea baby drones target Kilo-class vessel equipped with Caliber cruise missiles. So you're realizing that these drones have changed the whole warfare, right? If we can have underwater drones that could strike you, this was like the first torpedo that they ever came out with was a manned, I think, torpedo, right? With a guy, like, you had to steer it, you had to drive on the torpedo and blow yourself up. Which obviously most people are not going to want to do it, right? Or maybe you steered it towards the target and then somehow you exited the vehicle before it hits its target. But if that can hit you now and take out your troops without having to use any of mine, that's a big bonus, right? If I can have 1,000 drones and launch them at your troops and they all have small C4 charges on them and they just fly near your troop formations and start exploding, well, I don't have to use any of my own men to do that. All I got to use is a bunch of drones I bought in the store or I created for dirt cheap. Inside the billionaire's dinner with Epstein, Bezos, Musk, and Brin, as new photos of the event are released from the pedophile's estate. Said it's not looking good for Gates, right? Because he's in a lot of these photos. Clinton's in a lot of these photos. Noam Chomsky's in these photos. It looks like you were tight with him, right? Sergey Brin's in these photos, right? Rich people are in these photos. Billionaires are in these photos. David Brooks, the New York Times columnist, is in these photos. You're with them, right? You're hanging out with them. You're friends with these guys, right? David Brooks. Sergey Brin. We know Trump used to party with Epstein in different times. So these guys all knew each other, right? They're friends with each other. Gates, he knew Chomsky. New York Times columnist appears in new Epstein files days after writing column calling it a conspiracy. Whoops. Right? This guy should basically step down, right, from the New York Times after it's been found that you're not there in a capacity as a reporter. You're friends with these people. Well, how can you report on them then, with any kind of accuracy if you're gonna be friends with these guys? Trump and Epstein gossiped about sex and trophy hunt for women's swimsuit model claims. Of course they did. What were they talking about at Mar-a-Lago when he's showing him the dance floor. Look at all these women I could fuck. I can screw any one of these women I want. You can't. I can. That's why he hates Trump's guts, because Trump has everything he wants. He's got the lifestyle he wants. He's got the money he wants. He's got the access he wants. Miami gym Karen arrested after pummeling staff member in the face over entirely reasonable request. So he just asked this woman to be quiet. And again, the woman comes behind the desk, and then he's right there next to this guy here who has zero situational awareness and just lets the woman punch him straight in the face. I guess he just didn't care. Well, by doing that, though, you definitely got the case against her is now perfectly made. It's a perfect assault case. It's caught on video. And you're not in trouble because you didn't hurt her. You didn't raise your hands even to defend yourself, which you should have done, because you could have saved yourself getting sucker punched in the face. And she hits him pretty good too. I won't show it to you, but that's why I stopped going to Planet Fitness. It tends to attract the wrong type of people. Right? When $10 a month, anybody will go in there, right? Harvard secretly investigates students who leaked shameful Epstein confession of disgraced Professor Larry Summers. Why would you go look into them? Those people should be awarded, given a reward, right? So there's the Friars. I double posted the Friars Club roast, sorry. Democratic Party is in complete collapse, poll finds. Yeah, you're dead. You're dead in the water. I mean, you're basically putting in communist, members of the Communist Party as your people in your party now. You've gone completely to the left. Brown shooter found dead, identified as Portuguese national Claudio Manuel Neves Valente. The suspected gunman reportedly died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So again, here's somebody that was on the campus that people knew about, were warned. Somebody warned that the homeless guy had said that he knew about this person and they warned about him. DOJ set to release several 100,000 Jeffrey Epstein files. That already got released. Zoran Mamdani appointee resigns after vile anti-Semitic social media posts resurface. So why is it that this guy keeps putting in people who are like vilely racist people, it seems like? They hate Jews, they hate certain other groups of people. They don't seem to be too liking of them in the United States either. And this is who you're putting into your government? Who does he put in to run the fire department but a lesbian EMS worker who never worked as a firefighter in her life, who has no idea about how firefighting operations work? This woman is going to probably get somebody hurt because she doesn't know how to deal with fighting a fire, right? That's a whole science to that stuff that people spend years on doing. Fighting fires in different structures. How does fire move in a building? How does fire move in certain types of newer buildings as opposed to, say, the older buildings that New York has a lot of that have a lot of wood inside them? Right? You can get caught up in one of these warehouse fires where, yeah, if you don't know the type of building it is and how to deal with that fire, you can get people killed. You can put people up on the roof and then it collapses because you didn't realize. Right? You can make decisions that could get people hurt. This guy is going to, just to score points with his people, is going to put people into jobs that don't have no business being there. And why are you putting her in because she's a lesbian, or are you putting in because she's the best person, the most talented person who knows the most about the job? That's who you're supposed to put in there. Not somebody to fulfill some DEI crap that you're trying to push on the people. Right? Why does she have to be a lesbian that doesn't have any firefighting experience and was never a firefighter? Does that make any sense? No. So we'll see if how that posting goes over. It's not going to go over too well, I'm assuming. Hochul administration demands answers from Con Ed over the 2026 blackout warnings. They're saying we might have blackouts next year. We could have some rolling blackouts in New York. Really? Why? You've been able to give us power for 100 years or plus. Now all of a sudden you can't do it? Why not? What's wrong? Corey Haim's mom is furious over Corey Feldman's molestation accusation. No way in hell. It's one thing if he says, hey, let's fool around, as another thing if he's raping you in between two trailers or something, right? Or this kid saying, hey, let's, I don't know, what is he saying? Let's give each other oral or something? I don't know. I mean, I've been propositioned by multiple men in my past who just, a lot of gay guys, they just think everybody's gay. They don't care. Hey, can I suck your cock? No. Sorry, you can't. Do I have a sign on my forehead that says you can? Why do you think you can ask that, right? But there's some guys will just do it. In New York, they don't give a shit. They think you're good looking, they'll come right up to you. Or you'll be in the locker room or something and you'll see certain people, right? That's why I don't mess around in steam rooms too much around here, because you can't. Not when you know what goes on in the steam room when you're not looking. Not everybody's just getting a steam. Let's just put it that way. And I'm sorry if I've become vulgar in the show. I apologize, right? But some of these things are real. They happen every day in places like New York. You might not realize it. You might be from somewhere else where you don't get propositioned by gay men too often. In New York, it can happen. Venezuela's Maduro orders Navy to escort ships holding oil-based products defying Trump blockade. Does it happen often? No. Unless you're a really good-looking guy, then it does. I used to have actor friends that were super good-looking guys, like you would say 9 out of 10 or 10 model types. Yeah, everybody goes nuts for these guys. You go in a bar and everyone's head's on a swivel. All the women and the men are looking at these guys. You're nobody. You're just with them. You're just the arm candy that they're with that night, or one of their friends, whatever, right? I used to watch that in awe. Like, man, I wish I looked as good as you, man. I wish I was 6'2" and would have had a chiseled granite chin and perfect body, right? Yeah, it would be great to be that guy. Of course, it doesn't last. It never lasts forever. Venezuela's Maduro orders Navy to escort ships holding oil. So they're trying to keep oil going and sell oil to Cuba, right, is what they're really doing, and other illicit stuff, and they're trying to stop that. But you notice how all these people like Tucker Carlson were saying, oh, I know what Trump's going to say in his speech. He's going to say we're going into Venezuela. We're going to attack Venezuela. That was completely wrong, right? 100% wrong. All these people who have been saying, hey, there's going to be 10 days of darkness. Right? There's not been 10 days of darkness. There's been no new banking system. There's been no revaluation of the currencies. There's been no, your strawman accounts haven't been given back to you and acknowledged that they've been stealing from you, issuing bonds against your strawman name and number, right? They never told you that. The Muslim Bondi Beach hero who disarmed a terrorist branded a traitor in Arab media for saving Jewish lives. So you can see how the other side, how are we ever going to come together if there's groups of people saying, hey, that guy's a traitor, you should have murdered more people there. Then you would have been a hero. How do you have a future civilization with people who think like that? Can you? I don't think so. I'm starting to hear people talk about that at some point, a lot of these people that you think are, I don't know how to explain it. They're not real people. They're not human beings with a soul. They're generated people within the matrix. And I used to hear about these types of people years ago called the background people, right? Like, remember when he's showing Neo the Matrix and then they see the woman in the red dress who's like stands out, that really hot woman, right? And just all these other people just walking through the Matrix, right? They're just background people. They're not real. I've seen people like that. They don't really exist. Those are the people you walk up in the game and talk to. They're just background in the game. They're not real. Not in the real sense of the word where they have a soul. And when they die, they go to heaven. No, they're just, some of these people are just NPCs in the game. They don't have a soul. They're not human. They look human, but they're not human. They're not an actual human being. That's what my guess is. Because it's already starting to happen here in New York where I go out and look around and I'm like, where's all the people? There's way less people than I've ever remember there being here. Is that because it's the middle of the day? I'm in the wrong neighborhood? Maybe, but I just sense there's a lot less people here than there used to be. And especially these bad types. They're going to at some point just fade away and the Matrix won't be able to recreate them anymore. Because Kim Goldwyn is saying that they keep taking out the same people And then they keep coming back, which means they're not real, right? You're just taking out an NPC or a clone body and they have 15 other clones. So then how do you disarm all those clones? It's an energy frequency. How one anonymous tipster cracked the Brown University shooting case. Wait, what? John Travolta's kid is Elvis's great-grandson? So something going on with these people where they're sleeping around with each other. Right? Like Rob Reiner's kid doesn't look anything like him as far as I could tell. The eyes don't look right, nothing. The facial features. But somebody was saying, well, that kid is actually Billy Crystal's kid. That's why Billy Crystal was running over there the night of. Why would Billy Crystal be over there? Like, is he that close with the family? Why'd she call Billy Crystal before she even called the cops the daughter, right? Apparently. There's a lot of things about that Rob Reiner and his wife death that don't make much sense. These people don't think the Muslim hero of Bondi Beach is a hero, right? That's what I'm saying. How are you going to have a future society with people like this that want your certain other groups, just because they're religious belief, they want them dead? Right? And how do you deal with people who can watch a group of people molest, rape, kill a group of other people in their homes, and yet they're supporting the people that did those crimes, saying that they had a right to do it? And they have no sympathy for the people and the families that got murdered, raped, shot to death, killed in their home, slaughtered in their homes just like cattle, right? With no defense. Feds estimate Somali-linked fraud in Waltz's Minnesota could top $9 billion. So it looks like Waltz is in deep, deep trouble. This fraud, I'm assuming, is going to go all the way back and taint Ilhan Omar as well, whose husband's firm is now worth $30 million plus and is apparently taking down names of people who are in his firm off of their website for some reason. Australian PM proposes new gun buyback plan following Bondi Beach shooting. Maybe you should start looking into how many Muslims have guns in your country and access to them. That's what I'd be doing. Why don't you start with the 6 legal firearms that the terrorist shooters legally owned, including one with a long rifle with scope. It's like a hunting rifle. That's something you hunt things with, right? Usually. U.S. Virgin Islands gun restrictions violate the Second Amendment, the DOJ claims. Yeah. Probably not easy to get a firearm on the Virgin Islands, right? Not too much hunting going on there. Well, there might be some. Might be some wild boar out there. State-sanctioned suicide is the 4th leading cause of death in Canada. So what's Canada trying to do? They want to make it that the government can put you to death. If you're pissed off, you don't want to live anymore, they're not going to ask if you need any mental health care. They'll just say, hey, you want us to kill you? We'll do it for you free. How about that? We don't want you to live. What kind of a society does that to its populace? Right? That's not normal. Usually they're not helping you. They want to do everything in their power to keep you alive, to keep you as a tax-paying citizen, right? Trump media to merge with nuclear fusion company TAE in a $6 billion deal. So this guy's doing massive deals while he's the president. Now he's merging with a fusion company. Why, are you going to give us fusion finally, free energy? Because apparently the Chinese have a fusion reactor that they have already, so they're pretty close to getting free energy if they don't already have it. I'm assuming we already have it with Tesla stuff, but they don't want to. For some reason, nobody wants to develop Tesla technology. You notice, right? No. Why? Because that makes it that the healthcare industry dissolves, right? Because the frequency that resonates at is healthy. What people are starting to do is build their own smaller Tesla generators. They're looking up the plans for them. They're putting they're putting copper coils in the ground and using the Earth's natural resonance to help crop yields, and it's working. People realizing it again. Right, we've talked about that, the study, what that's called when you do that. I forgot what it's called now, but right, people are realizing you don't need pesticides or a lot of pesticides. You want to kill weeds, you can use salt and a couple of other ingredients, right? Crushed up salt and water and some vinegar or something. It's right. Good natural weed killer. So there's natural ways you can weed kill. You don't need to use these horrific poisons that have forever chemicals in them. In a poll, Americans favor less legal migration, and a plurality of people demand cuts or a halt. Yeah, we should have a full halt on all immigration right now. Australia cancels Christmas rather than cancel Muslim riots. Why do you think people are going to riot for when you're having Christmas? I mean, why are you kowtowing to this group of religious people? I don't understand why. Who aren't even a majority of your population. FBI busts shocking Snap fraud ring. Entire stores were allegedly set up to operate the scam. So here we go. Snap is turning out to be a much bigger scam than anyone ever thought. Kamala Harris struggles to explain to Kimmel why Biden was right to not push DOJ to release the Epstein files. Should have released them. They should have released everything, right? Trump should have released the Epstein files his first term. Why wasn't any of this released right away in his first term? Why didn't he force the DOJ to do the right thing then? Why did you leave these people in the DOJ who weren't doing the right thing? Haitians allegedly bilked taxpayers out of millions in the Snap scam. So now we have a Haitian scam. We have another scam that's related to Somalis from Somalia. What other groups have been scamming this country? Well, you could say that the people from different mafia groups have been doing that, right? Not just the Italian mafia. The Jewish mafia used to scam. Italian mafia. Russian mob. Right? You have all kinds of different people. We've allowed mafias to establish themselves here. Albanian organized crime. Some of these are some of the most insane people you've ever want to meet. Right? Operating in areas of the city and neighborhoods you don't even know really exist unless you're from there. These are people that are heavy-duty killers who will kill you and your entire family if you fuck around with them. And they will not hesitate to do it. Which means that most people don't know about these people, right? Because when most people look into them, they disappear. If you're any kind of a news person. And so on it goes, right? And on it goes. Intergenerational crime. Witkoff to host new Gaza talks as Israel-Hamas ceasefire appeal stalled. These people are wasting time, right? As a lot of people are starving to death who need help right now. What it's starting to look like to me is that Israel is going to take the whole thing. Like I said, right? You don't kill everybody and knock all the buildings down because you're going to rebuild it and give these people back. What do you think? They're going to rebuild their half and give them back a brand new Gaza? Here's all the new buildings futuristic for you for free. You don't got to do nothing. Just sit there. No. They're going to move these people out back to Turkey and the other nations that they originally came from, and they're going to dissolve Palestine. It's not going to exist anymore. Not the way you envision it. It'll be something different. And instead of the Palestinians, wanted to destroy the Jews and wipe them off the face of the earth from the river to the sea, it looks like Palestinians are getting wiped off the face of the earth from the river to the sea. That's what it's looking like to me. That's why I said when they first went in there, all I see is that buildings are all gone. Everything's in rubble. Everything is destroyed. Is that because you never got rid of that government that was partially, but that was all engineered that way, as far as I'm concerned, by the Israelis themselves, or by Netanyahu himself, really, because most of the Israelis don't want Hamas, anything to do with Hamas there. They don't want them there, right? Why can't these people get rid of Netanyahu? Is he that firmly in charge? It appears so. Where's the real Trump? We still don't know. If there's some other Trump around, right? I mean, we're still at this point, a year later after the elections, we still don't know who's the actual president of our country. It keeps changing in between different people, right? As our money is stolen from us. North Korean hackers stole a record $2.2 billion in crypto in 2025. That's why this stuff has to go away. It's an easy way to steal, right? It's enriching and allowing different groups of people to massively money launder their funds in a much easier way. Erica Kirk endorses Vance for president in the 2028 race. We're going to get my husband's friend J.D. Vance elected for 48 in the most resounding way possible. Do I like Vance? Not particularly, no. I think he needs to be removed as well as the fake Trump, and we need to get some kind of larger group in there running the country. I don't know who, but not these people. Because they're not going to give you free energy. They're not going to give you med beds. They're not going to give you anything that they've said they're going to give you. Nick Rayner was diagnosed with schizophrenia. New meds made him out of his head before parents' murder. So they're saying he was on schizophrenia meds, and and the dosages on some of these medications, if they work at all, which I don't think they do, but if they do, could take years to find the right cocktail, right? It might be this amount of this and this amount of that, or this amount of this particular drug. And if you give him too much, well, guess what? He has suicidal thoughts. He starts thinking about crazy shit because you overdosed him on it. Am I saying that's what they did? I don't know. But my point is some of these drugs can cause that kind of effect. Can cause you to have suicidal thoughts. How can a drug that's supposed to keep me from having those kinds of thoughts give me those thoughts? Is that something that should be released to the public? Probably not, right? I'm assuming that in the future, most of these drugs that are being prescribed, like Zoloft and all this, they're going to be gone because they don't have much of any helpfulness at all. And I've had people trying to get me on shit like this for years, and I would never do it. And I know in the end I was right to not do it, because the answer that you're seeking is not in those pills. It's not in the medicine, and it's not outside of yourself. It's within yourself. I'm 100% sure of it. Which means that you need to go inside self and do the inner work, however you can do that. Meditate, get yourself clean from doing drugs. Whatever it is you need to do, you'll know what it is. Forgive yourself for all the things you may have done wrong. Love yourself unconditionally. Love all others who may have hurt you unconditionally. Once you can do that and forgive those people, you're on your way to forgiveness and healing of self. So you need to do those things, right? There's going to be certain people. Maybe it's your dad. Maybe you have unresolved issues with your parents. Maybe you have unresolved issues with a boyfriend or girlfriend. That's okay. Just forgive them. And picture yourself with a scissors or an energetic scissors cutting the tie that binds you to that person energetically, and you're free of that person. And then they don't have any control over you. They don't rent space in your head for free anymore. You're free of that person. You've forgiven yourself and that person, and you've loved self unconditionally. And once you can do those things, that's the way you begin. At least that's how I began my healing. I used those things as the foundation of the house that I was going to build inside self. What is that foundation? It's love of self. Right? Forgiveness of self, love of self, unconditional love of self. Which means I always love self, no matter what. No matter, you might make the worst fuck up of your life. You made the wrong decision. You said the wrong thing. It's okay. Forgive yourself. Love self. Hochul commits $77 million for NYPD subway cops in 2026. As Mamdani pushes mental health teams. Yeah, you can have a mental health team, but you can't force somebody to go into a mental health institution. You can't force some of these people off the street because they're not coherent. They're talking in tongues. They're demon possessed. They're in different stages of paranoia. They're in different stages of addiction. White House responds to Trump third term reports. I don't see, how is this guy going to do a third term? He's already too old. He's not like he's going to get any younger. Epstein files release in chaos as DOJ admits it will miss deadline by weeks. So they're over the deadline. They haven't released all the documents. It's super foggy here in New York. We got a super fog day, which always weirds me out when it's like super foggy to wake up and you're like, whoa, it's dark out still. What's going on? I can't wake up. So I'm still drinking coffee, believe it or not. It's about 11:30 here. I'm going to take my first break. It's about an hour and 10 minutes in, which is normally when I do. I have a lot of information here. The question becomes, where are we going from here? Are we going to a place where we're going to actually get some kind of justice, because these people that keep talking about, oh yeah, these people have already been tried. I don't buy that bullshit, man. I don't want to hear that shit. We want to see people tried in the public view, arrested in the public view, tried in public. We want to see the EBS come out where all the other news is shut off for a while and you're just given the information. And that's not happening. And it's been over a year, and it should have happened by now. It should have happened a long time ago. It should have happened in Trump's first term. So the fact that these people, like who are these pundits that are blindly following along with Trump, and by the way, enriching themselves all the way along by selling silver coins and by selling T-shirts and by selling cups and by selling... You guys are all a bunch of bullshit. You're part of the reason that the United States and other countries are so misinformed that nobody knows what's going on. And I hope that you pay the price for that someday, that people come out and publicly shame you in the public forum for doing what you did and enriching yourself for all those years while you lied to people. So I hope you guys are doing well, working out stretching, staying in your sense of space. We're going to continue to provide the real information that we find, and then use our logical minds and our intuitive self to try to come to a conclusion as to what we think is going on in a world where we don't know what's going on. So I hope you're well, working out stretching, staying in your sense of space. I'm going to go get this coffee. In the meantime, you could just take this break. I'll be right back. You could do some push-ups, sit-ups, and burpees, and I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Okay, guys, I'm back. Thank you. Appreciate that. By the way, this year's flu is a real bastard. It's similar to the one I had last year. I got last year's flu also, which has a fever, cough, body aches. The fever is the worst part of it, though, really. It just keeps coming back again and again and again. I had a fever for like 3 days straight. But once that fever breaks, you're on the way to it's only a 3 or 4 days. I was only sick, really, for 4 days. The 5th day, I was just weak. But my throat was still sore, and I couldn't speak properly. So that was the problem. I couldn't do the show because it's really hard to speak for like 2 or 3 hours. And I have a low-pitch, timbered voice, which makes it even harder. I've lost my voice before when I've had jobs where I had to speak a lot. That 10-day rest was good for my voice, but I was sick for about 5 days of it, so it wasn't exactly the most fun. But I'm happy to be back. I don't take any flu virus stuff. I don't take that because it doesn't... They have to be able to match which flu variant is coming, and they were off this year anyway. So if you did take the flu vaccine, it's not going to protect you from this variant unless you already had it. And I already had it, but it didn't, and that still didn't protect me. So now Epstein files releases in chaos as the DOJ is now saying they're going to miss the deadline by weeks too. But why you have so much stuff? Why was this not being brought out in Trump's first term? Well, he had to run for a re-election. They didn't want that staining his first term, right? Obviously. These records have been sitting in the DOJ vaults for decades. And also why? Well, there's a lot of damaging photos in there of very powerful people. I mean, look who's been pictured with this guy. Larry Summers, Noam Chomsky. He has connections to certain banks. He has people from banks going over to his house to have dinner. Who do you know that does that? Right? You know too many people that have like the head of the Chase Bank that they bank at over at their house for dinner? No, that's a very, 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 very close level of friendship with your banker, right? Most people's banker they don't invite to their house unless you're like a Rockefeller and maybe you invite like the head of your bank, yeah, maybe for the Christmas party one year, right, to your house. But you're not actively dining with them on the regular and they're paying off to certain people for you, right? Why is a bank paying off victims of this guy, Epstein? You ever wonder that? Banks aren't usually the people that do that type of work. Deputy AG, DOJ won't release all Epstein files. Zoran Wamdani picks a failed progressive Biden nominee, Julie Su, as his top economic justice aide. So this guy's just picking all the worst types of Democrats you could possibly pick, right? The most leftist-leaning scum. That's who we're going to have as our government in New York. I mean, I'm dreading the first day that this guy gets into office. Let's hope that he gets caught up in some kind of he's probably going to, I'm assuming, get caught up in some kind of illegalities, or something's going to come out about this guy that he's maybe not an American citizen even. I don't know. But I don't understand how you can... Nobody's been able to explain to me how you can become mayor with only 1 million votes in the city of 8 million people. How does only 2 million people plus vote in a New York election, in one of the most substantial mayoral races in a decade or in a generation, and only 2 million people out of 8 million vote? 25% voter turnout? How is that possible? Nobody's been able to explain it. Somebody should ask Zoran Mamdani, people, that question. Do you realize you only won with 1 million people's vote? Do you think that gives you any kind of a moratorium on anything? No, right? That means the majority of the people didn't vote for you here. The large majority didn't. Homeless tipster living in Brown University campus basement cracks the shooting case. So this guy who was a homeless dude that was living somehow illegally in the basement, he figured this thing out. He was watching. He saw the guy moving around. He saw the dude. Give that guy his 50. You should give that guy $150K, and in his own apartment on campus, because he looked out for you guys, and you didn't have to. The Democrats are saying that the DOJ is breaking the law by not releasing all Epstein files by the deadline. Well, are they doing that because that Trump is going to be in there at some point, and they don't want to release that part because it's going to hurt Trump, the Republic? I don't know. Obviously, they're releasing more of this stuff that shows Bill and these other people, but there's one picture of Bill with the blonde that I found super interesting. Is that Ray Chandler? Because there is a picture of Bill that looks like on that plane, in the same plane, in that same time frame, when I remember it's with Ray Chandler. The child handler. Right? The one with the modeling agency that we never saw or heard of again after a long, long time. But one of the cute people on those boards, they were talking about Ray Chandler, right? She was in the pictures with Diddy. She was in a picture with Eminem. And she's in a picture with Bill Clinton. All underaged, apparently. She's now married to that some other rich guy. I forgot his name. Elise Stefanik suddenly dropped out, right? So why did Stefanik drop out of the race so quick? Just because Trump wasn't supporting her? Well, in New York, that doesn't, that could probably help you. She was the leading person for the governor's race, and all of a sudden now she's gone. So I don't know who we're going to run. Who's going to run, some Trump supporter now? They want a certain person to run for governor. They want to take over New York. U.S. launches a massive strike on ISIS in Syria after American troops were killed. Here's DOJ Epstein library, some of the files. I haven't been able to find where the photos are. I'd like to look through all those, but I can't find the exact place where the photos are kept. But it's on the Justice Department.gov website. It's under https www.justice.gov/Epstein. If you're looking for the Epstein files and all that stuff. Comet 3i Atlas heads past Earth and back into deep space. So, okay. Thanks for visiting us. I hope that whatever you did here, the energy is definitely rising. You could see that if your third eye is partially or fully open. There's not too many people whose third eye is fully open right now, I'm assuming. Unless you're a very accomplished yogi or somebody who's super practicing many years of meditation and different things, right, to do it. But your average, everyday person, like American walking around, your third eye is so fucking decalcified it'll never open unless you make some drastic changes to your diet right now. What kind of water you're drinking, what kind of roll-on you're using, what kind of toothpaste you're using, etc. You can do it. You can decalcify your pineal gland. I already did it to mine partially. I felt it crack, in fact, when it cracked open. And it cracks. When the stuff cracks, you'll feel it crack in your head, literally. We were not invaded. So much fear porn surrounded this. It was insane. Yeah, this was a fear porn event, right? When it's like another Oumuamua type vehicle. Maybe it was aliens on it. Nobody will ever know. There's people said there were aliens on it. Okay, well, do you know for sure? How do you know for sure? You don't, right? And anybody telling you that they do know for sure is a fucking liar. That's all. Because I got a high intuition rate, just as high as some of these people that claim to be, oh, I'm a witch, I'm this, I'm a star seed. How do you know all this stuff about yourself? It's interesting. I could be a star seed. It sounds great that like there was this group of people that came here and they're holding it down energetically. That might be true because that's how it feels like I'm doing. If you could see the light coming in through you as a conduit, it goes through your body. It moves through you, your crown chakra, through your third eye. And then it supposedly goes through you into the grid itself, right? Into the earth. It's not for you to keep. Bill Clinton is panicking after the latest Epstein release shows him with victims. Yeah, he's in the hot tub, he's chilling. He's hanging out like he's awful chummy with this blonde woman and who we don't know who it is. That could be Mr. Jeffrey. I think Ghislaine's probably having sex with a lot of these guys. She's part of it, right? She's open sexually. She likes to probably have sex with multiple men, as I'm assuming. Not just Epstein, who's, I'm assuming, not doing it for her sexually. Dozens of missing children, some as young as just 1 year old, were rescued from sex traffickers in massive sting. So if you got these people trafficking toddlers and babies, right, that are 1 year old babies to people, a healthy baby can be worth a lot of money, right? There's parents that want to adopt a healthy child, especially a healthy white child. Sick new details about Epstein's crimes revealed after DOJ releases files from unsealed grand jury. Yeah, it looks like they were getting ready to... They had a much deeper case about that they could have assembled, apparently, against him, right? But then, of course, we're probably told to back off by Acosta, and people like him were told, hey, you better back off. This guy's an asset way up the chain, right? This guy's with CIA. We're using this guy to sell weapons to different people. He's involved with the CIA. Right? That's why you can go into a bank like that and just do whatever the hell you want to do, because you're working for the CIA and you can't be touched. Plus, we don't even know what this real guy's name was. He has alternate names. We know he has another passport. He may have never been Jeffrey Epstein. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu expected to pitch Trump on more than Iran strikes during Mar-a-Lago meeting. So apparently Netanyahu's going to come to Mar-a-Lago soon. Why is Zelensky got to come all the way to Mar-a-Lago for this meeting? He could have done that on a Zoom meeting, right? Why does he keep coming all the way to the United States, spending all this money? So San Francisco had a power outage about a week ago. 130,000 people were in the dark. All those Waymo cars got stuck, right? They couldn't move anymore. They got stuck on the street. Was that a test run for a bigger blackout they're trying to do? More than a dozen newly released Jeffrey Epstein files vanished from the Justice Department website. Yeah, one of those was the photo with Trump with the 4 women, right? And that was in the box. Epstein had a box on his desk, and one of those photos was in there. There was him and, the famous one of him and Melania and Trump at Mar-a-Lago, but then there was another one with Trump with just these 4 women before he met Melania. I'm wondering if that's where the photo is of Trump with the women on his lap at the pool by Epstein's house with the topless models. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese heckled as he faced grieving families after the Bondi attack. Yeah. You got some nerve showing your face at that funeral, right? After the response that you had. Whoever handled the response that day should be terminated. And some of those cops should also probably be fired. Why? Because your job is to head into the fire when there's a problem, right? Not to cower and hide. Your job is to run towards it. And in fact, you should be ready to give your life if need be. To protect the people that you serve, right? And if you're not willing to do that as a police officer, as a soldier, then maybe you should be doing something else. That's just fact. Right? Because that's what your job is, to protect and serve. Which means first off, protect me. Right? And then serve me. Right? I don't serve you. You serve me. You're a public servant. Your job is to protect the public, period. If you can't do your job, Don't do it. Kushner and Witkoff draft a $112 billion proposal to develop Gaza into a smart city with luxury resorts and U.S. footing, $60 billion footing. I said, what the hell are these people doing? Why are you allowing these people to... They're going to go in there and just make Trump Gaza. And yeah, there'll be a small portion. Yeah, the Palestinians, you'll be over there somewhere in the desert out there. Yeah, in a little conclave. We'll give you something. Don't worry. Are you getting these new glitzy towers? And no. What about if your family's land that was taken was right on the water over there? Not anymore. It's somewhere else. We've been relocated, sir. Your land is somewhere out there in the desert somewhere. We'll find you a spot, but it's not going to be right on the waterfront anymore. No. We're making Trump Gaza here. I don't know what you think you're doing. So then Corey Feldman had to walk back to claim that Corey Haim molested him. He didn't molest you. He asked you to... Right? It's different if you're forcibly molested by somebody, or if someone says, hey, you want to fool around? Right? And you're like 14 years old. Hey, you want to... I don't know, maybe I'm gay. I don't know. I'm 14, right? I'm Corey Feldman, whatever. I'm doing a whole bunch of drugs. Maybe I want to get high and... I don't know. I mean, look at the amount of drugs these guys are doing. Nobody's thinking clearly, right? Obviously. They're surrounded by pedophiles and other scum. And then nobody's looking out for these two kids, right? Unfortunately. Their parents are taking most of their money and have control of it. I said, suggesting you give each other oral sex is not molestation. He was asked, not forced, right? Molestation usually means you're forced into it. You're raped. Somebody forcibly rapes you, somebody stronger than you beats you up, you're drugged maybe, incapacitated that way, but it's not something you're just like some guy saying, hey, you mind if I drug you and then I'll rape you? No. Right? That's not what happens. It's usually somebody that's bigger than you, stronger than you, in a position of power over you, that you trust, who exploits you. Washington Square Park crime plummets 65% since the NYPD's 24/7 crackdown on dealers and junkies. Yeah, that's easy. Just have 2 cops walking through there on a beat and have another 2 on the other side. Well, it's not that hard. Put more cameras in there. Start busting the actual junkies who were laying on the fucking benches with needles in their arms and shit. It's not hard. You made it a piece of crap on purpose. You did all this on purpose, right? For some reason that you thought what was going to help you, that you thought by letting everything fall to crap that you were going to come in and save us all in the end, that Trump would be the savior, right? Trump would come in and it would all stop, right? Ivanka Trump's husband presents a $112 billion plan for beachside resort on the shattered ruins of Gaza. But you know what they got to do first? They got to clear the 10,000 corpses that are still in the rubble. What do you think that smells like? People just rotting inside of buildings, right? You think you can go in there and just fix that? Nope. You're going to have to clear all that rubble and then get the people's whatever remains is still there out of there, which is probably not much left. Maybe bones. Some flesh. You're never going to find most of those bodies. U.S. seizes another vessel off the coast of Venezuela amid escalating tensions between the countries. Daily Mail. Epstein had aroused young boys' coming-of-age ceremony depicted in a disturbing floor-to-ceiling mural on the bedroom wall. Did you see what else is in Epstein's house? It's a very similar statue that was in the Podesta brothers' house. Remember when he has that bent-over statue of the it's made out of from a victim of that cannibal guy who was eating his victims, right? What was that guy's name? The serial killer. The one in Epstein's house is like a bride that looks like a woman who's a bride and she's climbing down some rope. But I remember another kid climbing down that rope who was trying to escape the palace. Remember that naked kid who was climbing down the rope and was seen climbing out from Buckingham Palace? U.S. seizes second oil tanker off Venezuela coast. ex-FBI agent says that Bondi has a slam-dunk conspiracy case against the Obama's feds for election meddling. Former FBI agent and Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam says Trump should name a justice czar to coordinate both prosecutions and policy fixes. This would be a slam-dunk case for any U.S. attorney. So I said, what's the holdup? Why does this move so slow? Why do you keep postponing when the Clintons will be deposed? Right, you notice that he's postponing the Clintons, he's postponing doing anything about that. That's been pushed back to in January. Now they're saying aliens will be found by 2075. That's a long ways from now. That's another 50 years. I think that some are here already, though. I mean, what are you talking about? 50 more years you're going to withhold this from the public? That doesn't sound like we're anywhere near where we should be. Sister of Epstein victim reported him in 1996, but the FBI failed to investigate, files reveal. Clinton FBI did nothing. Because he was an asset, even back then. He was an asset probably since the 80s, right? Remember when all those people are meeting on Trump's... Well, Trump is meeting with Maxwell's dad on that boat. Remember that? That's 88, I think. No, that's 89. What are they doing there? Well, partially what they're doing is they're picking the next cabinet for the next president, which is going to be George W. Bush, the senior, right? Who wins in 92? Right. Who wins? No. Who wins when? 92? Right. After the 8 years of Reagan and the fallout from Iran-Contra, they somehow get George W. Bush in there, which I don't know how they do, because some people said that Bush actually had tried to kill Reagan multiple times, and he had it basically after the Reagan's, after Reagan is the attempt on Reagan's life, he's really never the same again. Some people had said he was given like cold blood and some stuff like that, like when he was in the hospital, they did something to him, but he never fully recovered, and of course he was starting to be non-compos mentis probably in his second term as well. And so a lot of people were saying that Bush Sr. was actually running that second term. FBI was warned that Epstein was into child porn but ignored it for 10 years, Doc showed. Yeah, they knew. The question is, who was the highest person that stopped it? In the FBI, was it somebody that from high up, like in Reagan's orbit, that said you can't touch this guy? He knows too much about other stuff that's been going on. He's entangled in very, very big time stuff with the CIA and BCCI bank. Power largely restored after unexplained blackout hit San Francisco. That was a week ago now. Pakistan's former prime minister was sentenced to more jail time for corruption. So the Imran Khan, who everybody was saying that might be innocent, he got more jail time. He's still in jail. DOJ forced into Epstein files U-turn after Trump photos vanished. As Pam Bondi's warned, she faces charges. You can't just make the photos vanish like that. What are you doing? Cops raid 2 more New York City knockoff markets, scaring off absolutely nobody. I'm not afraid. You got to be there every day with cops on the beat. That's the only way. These guys will just keep coming back. Although we've had a lot of snow here, and you can't. Nobody's selling that shit. I walked over there the other day just to take a look, and there was almost nobody around because it's snow all over the place, and you can't sell, and nobody's coming around. But on the daily, there's always people over there, right? You got to have cops in those alleys. You got to start having cops that are on the beat there, on the patrol every day. I wrote, you need to arrest and deport all these African migrants. They have been doing this for many years and it must end. But you're not, if you just grab these guys and deport them all, they'd be gone, right? Trump is recalling 48 ambassadors from Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe. Why is he doing that? Why would you pull all the ambassadors out of all these countries? Doesn't make any sense. Massachusetts mayor requests a translator in court hearing due to his poor English. So this guy got somehow elected the mayor of a Massachusetts town, but he doesn't speak hardly enough English to be... How are you the mayor? You don't even speak English. You can't fluently speak the language. How did this guy get elected the mayor? Is he even legally a legal American citizen? The Pentagon wants a ethics inquiry on Rep. Vindman's Ukraine business deals. Pentagon's raising questions about Vindman's private business efforts in Ukraine while he worked on a State Department-funded project. Japan is set to restart Fukushima. I thought that thing was not in a good state. The country took a final step last week when regional officials approved the restarting of Fukushima nearly 15 years after the disaster. So what was the tidal wave caused by? Something else, obviously, right? That was what, a nuke on the... Somebody set off a nuke down there? What happened? We never found out. Massey and Contra are preparing to bring inherent contempt against Bondi over the Epstein files. Reps Ro Contra from California and Thomas Massey, Republican, Kentucky, co-authors of the bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act, said the department's December disclosure remains excessively redacted and missing significant documents mandated by the law. And did you see what else these people did? Somebody had just, I guess in Adobe or something, just blacked out all the documents. So when you copy and pasted them into like a Word document or whatever, the redactions were gone. So you could see what was redacted. People could see everything. So a lot of those photos that were redacted, some people saw the unredacted photos. I don't know how many. The DOJ is suing both red and blue states to force them to clean their voter rolls for the 2026 midterms. I mean, you're still using the Dominion systems. It doesn't matter if they clean the voter rolls. They can still cheat. The 16 Epstein files photos that were censored and cover-up that sparked huge backlash. Who's removing the photos? Seems like it's illegal, right? You can't just remove certain photos because you don't. Why? Are you protecting the president or somebody else? There's the photo of Trump with the 4 women. It's right there on his desk, right? What's underneath these photos? Is there more photos? We can't see what the other ones look like. There's the famous one, but this one with Trump and these 4 women, I'd never seen that one before. This one looks like, I don't know what this is, another photo book here. There's Ghislaine in the sports car showing her in between her legs. Here's some other 2 women that are redacted. Here's the one with Andrew laying on all the women's laps. That's the one that's funny. Not funny, but sad, because there's like how many women on these were abused in these photos, maybe. There's at least 1, 2, 3, 5 women in this photo, and Ghislaine, with Andrew laying on their laps. There's the one with Epstein and some women that's redacted. There's Michael Jackson with Bill Clinton and Diana Ross. Now here's the one coming up. I don't know if they're going to show the one with... Here's Bill in the hot tub. There's Trump and Melania at Mar-a-Lago. 2 more models. Here's the one with Bill. This could be Ray Chandler. I'm not sure. I remember seeing that she wasn't a white... Then you can see there's other people in this background here, also in the other room. I didn't even notice these 2 people's faces. I can't see who those are. And there's Bill with the same blonde woman, I'm assuming, with she has a sweater on now. A woman on the beach. Epstein with a toddler's leg exposed. Here's Epstein with different women. Here's Bill Clinton in his blue dress. So... a lot of these photos seem to be redacted. Newsom struggle with black voters jeopardizes White House dreams. Newsom will never be president. That's what I wrote. Period. End of statement. Nome for the holidays. GHS chief offers $3,000 bonus to illegal aliens if they self-deport by December 31st. So why would you do that for? Why? I don't want my taxpayer going to these people who are self-deporting. Just kick them out. They don't deserve $3,000 for sneaking in here. The Trump administration scraps 5 offshore wind farms, including the New York project. Thank goodness. Citing national security risks. Well, it's also pollutive. Ariana Grande plays Kevin McAllister in Home Alone scene on SNL with a bloody twist. Why are they using blood? She has like blood all over her face. It's disgusting. These people are always trying to use blood and do stuff like that. Stomach churning new Epstein photo show him kissing and cuddling girls on his jet. We just saw some of those photos where you see a toddler's leg is in the photo. Like, whose kids are these? I wrote. Bill Clinton demands all Epstein files be released by DOJ as victims claim thousands more pictures still being held from public. Elderly Seattle woman has eye gouged out in random attack by repeat thug as cops admit he's notorious. Seems to be that they keep allowing these people with multiple, arrests on their record, some as many with dozens of arrests, to just keep getting right back out of jail even though they're hurting people. The extreme ruse Nick Reiner invented to score meds ahead of his parents' murders. Yeah, he claimed that he threw rocks through like a treatment center window to try to get help. I mean, why don't you just walk in and ask for help, right? What'd you think? You're going to throw some rocks through their window and they're going to give you some, some some meth or whatever? Police, Bondi Beach attackers had pipe bombs and a tennis ball bomb. FBI raids home of Secret Service agent in tax fraud investigation. In addition to the fraud charges, the Secret Service agent could face internal insider threat allegations over poor judgment. DOJ set to release next round of Epstein files as missing Trump photo reappears. So these photos, who's taking the photos out and then why are they reappearing? Are you trying to hold back photos that show more of Trump with Epstein and you don't want that to come out? Watch the spooky death penalty scene from TV classic All in the Family that pretends horrific murder of Rob Reiner and his wife. Yeah, he's called Meathead. What happened to his head? It got turned into a piece of meat, right? Literally, he got stabbed to death. Stabbing like a piece of meat into Meathead's head, right? That's what, they turned Meathead into a literal meathead. Whitchurch Canal sinkhole, major incident declared in Shropshire. So, people were in their narrow boats and all of a sudden they're like, how come we're not floating anymore? Well, the canal's gone. One of the banks of the canal gave way and the canal is now released into the countryside. Somebody screwed up. Or it just happens, right? Sometimes over time the land erodes or there's not a lot of trees in these areas to keep the soil together, right, with the root system. So if you don't plant enough plantings and it gets a lot of rain and you just have a lot of, not a lot of trees in these areas where there's just a lot of open land, yeah, you can get some problems with the water. The land erodes and gives way. DOJ releases shocking fake video of Jeffrey Epstein's suicide as part of file dump. So they did this fake video where it shows him in the cell, but there's, the interesting thing is when I look at him in the cell again, it looks like there's two different devices in that cell that shouldn't be there. The sleep apnea machine and something else. And if I know the sleep apnea machine has a power cord, so you could have easily put that around your neck and strangled yourself with it. Gold and silver explode to record highs. I don't know what silver's doing now. Let's check. Probably going to stay down today, pretty much. Down $7, 73.03. Okay. Everything else is down big. It's a down day. Mistrial declared in case of top Hochul Cuomo aide accused of acting as a Chinese agent. So this woman was a Chinese agent, and she was helping Cuomo, and she was also working for Hochul apparently for years, and nobody found this out. And now she's been allowed to. It was a mistrial so that they don't have to deal with the case, of course. Zoran Mamdani will be sworn in as New York City mayor by fellow socialist Bernie Sanders and AG Tish James. So that's just making a lot of people in New York have a bad feeling. Of course, he's going to have a huge block party. He's using his millions of dollars in his slush fund that he has set up to transition with, so he can use that to finance his and pay for extra security for his block party. New docs reveal shocking lengths Obama and Biden went to protect Hillary Clinton and get Trump. Yeah, sure. They thought that once Hillary got in, she was going to whitewash everything that they did and all the crimes. But, I mean, look what happened. Did Obama ever get in trouble for anything he did when Trump got in? No. Did the Obamas or Clintons spend one day in jail? No. Not yet. And they're both getting pretty old, right? His Obama's still have his $12 million estate in, wherever that is, that island. Right? Remember where the chef disappeared and drowned in like 5 feet of water? Non-citizen says she voted in multiple Georgia elections. They gave me a paper to sign. Non-citizen votes. Not a citizen, a non-citizen. We know that Georgia had at least, they're saying now, 300,000 people voting. Plus what happened in 2020 with not Tina Peters, sorry, with the woman and her daughter, remember? Who got caught sending the same, allegedly sending through the same batch of voting documents over and over again. Trump defends big boy Bill Clinton after terrible Epstein files photo dump. Yeah, and then he goes and defends Clinton and insists many meetings with the pedophile were innocent. Why is he doing that? Well, because you're in there. You're in there too. You're having dinners with him. You're hanging out with the guy. Trump administration rushes to delete chilling video recreating Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. So who posted that? Furious Turning Point builds tent replica of where Charlie Kirk was assassinated so fans can take selfies. I mean, how disgusting is this? What are these people doing? You're making money off this guy's death. You actually recreated the scene? Why'd you do that? Bill Clinton's FBI buried Epstein bombshell. Yeah, we know. So what? What are you going to do about it? So did Trump, it appears. John Brennan's lawyers confirm he's the target of a Florida grand jury probe. Ask judge to intervene. The letter to chief federal judge in Miami is an extraordinary injection by Brennan's defense team and likely signals his lawyers fear an indictment is imminent. I'm just wondering if this touches the Tory Maris, because she used to work with him. She's giving him advice now. I heard she's doing all these videos that just don't make any sense. That say sparking your memory, and they're showing like old stuff that's already been put out there by people. I'm not understanding what she's doing. But once she had Juan O'Savin on her show, I basically stopped watching anything she was doing. The EU's roughly $105 billion loan allows Ukraine to keep fighting. So they gave him more money. How much cash has been given to this nation now? I don't know. It's got to have been hundreds of billions of dollars. Who knows where it's gone. And he's still there. He's still not stepping down. It's just totally insane. And on this bullshit story goes that we have to keep watching, where our own country's just, we don't know who's running our own country. Our own country is filled with all these illegal aliens and other criminal groups that nobody's doing anything about. You know, is Trump going after the mafia right now? No, he's going after illegal aliens, like, you know, who are small-time people. We need to get rid of those people. But what about some of the large gangs that are in this country? Debate grows over the plan to widen access to North Korean websites. Did Biden win Georgia? No. He lost Georgia. 2020 election results now in doubt after county admits to counting perhaps 315,000 uncertified votes. Well, if you counted that many, the whole vote should be gone. It should have been nullified. And you had to take a revote, but you didn't do that. Right? No, you had that woman and her daughter closed down the voting center and made a fake leak upstairs. You shut down the whole voting center, and then you had these people putting the same votes through so that all for hours and hours and hours, so that Biden would win Georgia when he lost. Trump announces $1.3 billion in sales of gold card visas. Why would you allow your people to do that for? We don't want, just because you're rich doesn't mean you should definitely be in this country. New data sparks firestorm over racism against white people in white-collar jobs. Yeah, that's what you're doing. It's like a reverse racism. People think, oh, you can't be racist against white people. Why not? I'm white. I've had people say racist shit to me for bunches of different times. Of different races. Black, Hispanic, Asian. I've had issues with all those groups at one point or another. Had them saying racist stuff to me. And I give as good as I get. I'll call you whatever I want to your face. You don't like it, that's your problem. If you're going to come at me with some racist tropes. You got to be able to give as good as you get in New York. If not, then people will just walk all over you. Another year, another $2 trillion in debt. Yep, or just, what are we, 40 trill? What happened with Trump? I thought he was the expert in coming out of bankruptcies. He's not doing anything about that. He just gave a $900 billion budget for more weapons you don't need. No more polite acceptance of cultural differences in America. No. Doesn't seem like it, right? You have groups now that are saying, hey, you know what? I'm okay with if these people kill you because you're this religion. I don't care. I want you dead. Okay, well, what about if I want you dead and your religion dead? Is that okay too? Is it okay if I start attacking a mosque? No. Why is it okay that you're attacking Jews in their place of worship? Why is it okay for you to go and start shooting up a bunch of Jews, but hey, if somebody starts shooting up your group, oh my God, it's the worst thing in the world, right? See how that doesn't make any sense? America does not want Sharia law in this country. Is GOP up to bringing back the American dream? It doesn't appear so. Nobody is. Silver was up to $70 about 5 or 6 days ago. Now it's around the same price. After going down $7 in a day, up $8 in a day. Why is there a $5 gold spread between the Comex in New York silver market and the silver market in Asia? There shouldn't be a $5 spread. And if there and who is in fact playing in that spread, making a fortune right now and in the past? J.P. Morgan is one, right? What banks have been generationally keeping the price of gold and silver down illegally, with illegal shorts, with illegal ways of manipulation of the market that should not be allowed? Well, one is J.P. Morgan, that's for sure. They shouldn't be banned from ever owning any gold or silver or metals futures at all, period. End of story. They should be banned from owning silver and gold for all the missteps they've done. And in fact, it seems like they've now stopped doing their shorts because they can't short silver anymore. They're losing too much money. It's going up too much. That they've had to now begin buying more silver. Trump flew on Epstein's private jet more times than we knew, along with the pedophile and 20-year-old woman. So now we know that Trump was on the plane many more times. Now, is he coming every single time just from Florida? We don't know that. If he could be connecting from the Virgin Islands and to Florida. We don't know that yet. But we haven't seen physical evidence that Trump was on Epstein Island yet. And he says he never was, which I find hard to believe, knowing him as long as he did. I don't know when he gets Epstein Island. That's not till the 90s, I think. Justice Department releases third batch of Epstein files, including some that mention Trump. We can see that there's a box on Epstein's desk that has a photo of Trump in it that we hadn't seen before, so they had to release that. That was the photo that apparently then went missing and then was reacquired and then put back out, right? The one with him and the 4 women. So there's other photos of him with other women, I'm assuming. Because this is what Epstein does. He likes to take a lot of photos of you. And if I was like a Trump guy and I'm hanging with Epstein watching him take photos of me, there's no way I'd let that happen. Why was this family never touched or investigated? The Hunter Biden clan. Hunter Biden now claims his laptop from hell wasn't even real. He's now trying to rewrite history and say, no, the laptop was it was a couple of laptops. It wasn't, Jeffrey Epstein joked he'd taken the short route home in jailhouse letter to Larry Nassar before suicide. So here's a pedophile writing another pedophile. And that letter never got to Nassar. It's time to treat Bill Clinton like Prince Andrew and banish him from polite society. Yeah, we should. Epstein named Larry Summers, Jess Staley as his state executors in his draft wills. So this guy left Jess Staley and Larry Summers as his executor of his will. That's interesting. And his will's worth a lot of money. He's got a close to $600 million estate, I believe. Maybe more. As copper reaches a record $12,000 per ton, everyday products poised to get even more expensive. What did I tell you a while back, right? Hey, if you can't buy a big block of copper, even, right? Remember when I said it might be a good idea to buy a big piece of copper? I wish I had done that too. I made a mistake. I was going to buy like a 2-pound piece of copper years ago, when it was nothing. That would have been the play, right? Maybe just buy a 2-3 pound block of copper and just keep it in your house, right? And wait till copper goes insane and then just get rid of it. That's how the small guy can make a couple bucks even, right, in this market. I'm still very, very positive on silver. I'm seeing it going up and down $7 a day. I like that kind of party. Rob Reiner death certificate reveals which family member got him and his wife's remains. I wrote, most Jews do not cremate their dead. This guy was cremated, which is not in the Jewish normal way of burial. You're supposed to be buried within 24 hours. But some people don't want to be, buried that way. They want to be cremated now. So in that case, you're not buried right away. Your body is held, usually by the crematorium, until whenever they have a date free that they can cremate somebody. They have to cremate people one at a time, right? What happened was years ago, this guy said, hey, you know what? Fuck it. I'll just cremate 10 bodies at once. You won't know the difference. I'll give you some ashes back, and who cares, right? I'll make 10 times the profit, and nobody will find out. But they found out because they're like, how come all these guys making so much more money than all the other crematoriums? Well, he's cremating 10 bodies in a day. That's illegal, right? You're not supposed to mix the bodies for that reason. Russell Brand faces new rape, sexual assault charges after 2 more women come forward. I don't know. I think this is probably real. I mean, this guy's obviously fucking around, doing a lot of drugs, and who knows what he's doing. When different people are in different levels of, you might think you're conscious and you're actually half knocked out on something, right? Having sex. You can do that. People used to take Ambien. That's what Tiger Woods was doing, right? He was having Ambien sex. He's popping an Ambien instead of going to sleep. He's staying up and then having sex, which is not what the freaking drug is prescribed for. It's not a party drug, right? Russell Brand's in trouble. Jeffrey Epstein's fake Austrian passport pictured in latest DOJ document dump. Remember the long ago show I did entitled Jeffrey Epstein's Other Name? So we gave you that information like 5 years ago, almost 4 years ago we knew about that. But yet it's just coming out now, like, somehow. Zohan Mamdani's wife, Rama Jawaji, complains about fame in new interview, hints at what she'll do as New York City First Lady. I mean, here's somebody that's already complaining. Before this guy has even started, she's already complaining. It's too much. I don't want the public exposure. Well, then don't run for mayor. Have your husband run for mayor of the city. This is going to go down as one of the fakest elections I've ever seen. Is cyanide from 3i Atlas raining down on Earth as it passes by? I mean, it's not like it's right there, dude. It's not like it's right there. It's thousands and thousands of miles away from us. How is it raining anything down? It might be giving some kind of physical energy to us. And hopefully for the good. Mayor Michelle Wu claims that Somalis are to thank for Boston's achievements. Boston was founded in 1630. She writes, you cannot talk about any achievement that the city of Boston has had in safety, jobs, and economic development, and education without talking about the Somali community that has lifted our city up. What the fuck are you talking about? There was no Somalis living there for the majority of Boston's history. The Somalis living there is a small speck in the history of Boston. A very small speck. Maybe of several years or decade, maybe. That's it. There's no Somalis living back there in 1700, 1800, 1900. No, there were none. Zero. Nada. Maybe a few, but not many. And if they were going to come to the United States in that time, do you think they're going to go to Boston, which has a reputation as being one of the more racist cities back in the day that doesn't like black people? No. FBI accused of corrupting Epstein jail footage after his death, bombshell memo claims. Well, the rumor was, some people said that Trump sent somebody in there to kill Epstein and get rid of him. Or somebody did, because he knew too much. He could give info on too many secretive projects that were going on. Nicaragua bans entry of Bibles and books and newspapers and cameras. Why would you do that? What are you trying to do? Is Nicaragua going to be like the next Venezuela? No Bibles? Sounds like you're sounding more and more like North Korea every day, right? Well, they can put you in jail there for proselytizing, they call it, which is they're talking about religion or preaching religion, right? I mean, look at what the Japanese did to the early, the early Jesuits that tried to show up and proselytize about God and their religion. They put those people to death in horrific ways. They tortured them. Purported Epstein letter that referenced President Trump is fake, the DOJ says. So where'd you get a fake letter put into the DOJ's documents? Who allowed that? And who didn't do their due diligence on that letter? Kenyan terrorists took flight lessons and researched skyscrapers for 9/11 style terror attack in Atlanta, Fed said. So you got another guy who's now planning on taking flight lessons, right? It's the same sort of 9/11 thing. Epstein files exposed chilling details of pedophile's final days and why he was afraid of going back to his cell. Why was he afraid of that cell for? Was there somebody... It was on the upstairs part, like sort of off the beaten trail, right? Where a lot of people couldn't see up there what was going on. And they did have some kind of a barrier for the camera at one point that was put up to block the camera from seeing something going in and out of the room. Remember what I buried. The chauffeur's fiery blow-up with Epstein and Ghislaine inside the strip club was reported to the FBI. What did this guy bury? One of the girls, maybe? Probably. What else would a chauffeur bury for you, right? Probably some body of a girl that they had abused and then she either died or they killed her, right? Something. Or one of their guests did. Right? You could bury somebody out in his Arizona ranch and probably never find the body. He's got thousands of acres out there, or a 1,000-acre ranch. Excuse me. 5 years too late, Fulton County proves Trump's call to Raffensperger right. Yeah, Trump was right about that. He knew something was going wrong. We also knew that something was going on because the Undersecretary of State's sister was talking to Wang Ping up in New York, right? And she also happened to be the Undersecretary of State of Georgia, was your sister. And that was an interesting backstory that nobody else was talking about. The fact that Wang Ping is going all over the place. Wang Ping is a powerful Chinese diplomat who was stationed in New York at one time, but also was going to different colleges all over the country, if you remember. We looked into Wang Ping all the way back in 2019, I think. I was looking into Wang Ping. Looking back to 2019, I mean, when Wang Ping was doing some of the stuff he was doing in 2020 also, when we first started this broadcast. Zohran Mamdani's team will pay for the massive block party, but questions remain over its impacts. Yeah, why are you doing a big block party? I don't remember any other mayor doing that. I remember other mayors getting voted in with much larger constituencies and votes who didn't waste the people's time. And you're blocking down Broadway, by the way, which is a major artery. I think this is going to probably backfire. And there might be protesters that show up, but it's going to make you look real stupid. Like your first day, you think everybody likes you as mayor, and guess what? They don't. There's some people that are going to probably show up there and they don't like you. And they didn't vote for you. Supreme Court denies Trump's administration's bid to deploy National Guard troops in Illinois. Court, at this preliminary stage, the government has failed to identify a source of authority that would allow the military to execute the law in Illinois. So they're saying that the government doesn't have any say in that, only the state does. Turkey shuts down airspace over the country's capital after plane crash kills Libya's top general. Turkish authorities closed Ankara's airspace as a precaution after it lost contact with the plane and diverted multiple commercial flights away from Esenbolga airport. The commander's death was later confirmed by Turkish and Libyan officials. Mayor-elect Mamdani scrambles to fill key positions. He doesn't even have his full group of people in his... He doesn't have a full cabinet yet. And there's only days left till he starts. He doesn't even have it fully staffed. Which means that there's going to be huge amounts of agencies that have nobody running it when this guy comes in. Zero. And they're going to have to hit the ground running real quick. Which means if you're going to bring in your new people, they got to be brought up to speed. They got to be shown first if they even know what they're doing. Which most of these people probably don't. This is going to be a complete fucking disaster is what I guess. Because like I said, it's not so easy to just run a massive city like this. It has huge amounts of moving parts. You have to be able to control huge amounts of people and figure out what they're doing and keep track of it all. And you think this guy at 33 years old has the mental capacity and or the experience to do that? I fucking don't. I don't think this guy could even run a fucking supermarket. So, if you can't staff your organization fully, why? Because there's not enough communists that you trust which means you're going to have to staff most of your organization with people who were there before. We'll keep an eye on Mamdani, who I think is going to be a complete disaster. Tech-savvy users discover a way around the redacted parts of the Epstein files. Yeah, these idiots just posted... they didn't do it right. They didn't redact properly. So when you copy and pasted them into a Word document, you could see what was redacted. These people are not too smart. They have no idea what they're doing. Tech-savvy sleuths discovered a way to uncensor the heavily redacted files. You can see that some of this is unredacted now. They're able to review parts that were redacted, which should not be. Federal judge rules against Trump administration over New York law that allows illegal aliens to drive. The judge ruled that New York's green light law doesn't violate the U.S. Constitution's supremacy clause. It should. Illegal aliens given fake social security cards and then a license. Both are fake. You need to redo the social security card. It should have even more protections than the freaking license does. Instead, it's just a piece of paper where you could type anybody's name on it, right? With almost no other holograms. There might be some small holograms in it, but there's no picture ID, there's no advanced stuff. Which allows you to give illegal aliens fake. That's why I was wondering, what are these people all going to be doing? They're going to be doing a lot of driving jobs that they shouldn't be allowed to do. Epstein docs bombshell exposes 10 possible co-conspirators as redacted docs reveal late pedophile sinister syndicate. Who are they protecting? Well, they're protecting people like Brunel. They're protecting people like Bill Clinton. They're protecting other people high up in the Clinton orbit who was allowing Epstein to come to the White House 15 or 16 times, however many times Epstein was coming. Bringing young women to the White House for sex parties or whatever. A Mexican Navy plane crashed in Texas and killed 5. And I wrote, Mexico has a Navy? I didn't know they had planes. Colombian President Gustavo Petro calls for Texas to be returned to Mexico. So that's the first time I've heard anybody asking about that. Ukraine agrees to demilitarize economic zone in Donbass to advance Trump's peace plan. Why is Zohar Mamdani surrounded by anti-Semites? That's a good question. Well, he doesn't like Jews. It's pretty obvious why. So he surrounds himself with other people that don't like Jews, who happen to also some of them be Muslim, right? But you're in a city that has quite a large Jewish population that you're going to have to deal with. The horrifying human zoos. Shocking images show how primitive tribesmen were caged alongside animals. So we talked about human zoos a long time ago. The Bronx Zoo and other zoos at one point in their early history had human zoos where they would put human beings into different exhibits with wild animals. Here's Madrid's Human Zoo, which exhibited people from the Filipino Igorot tribe for 6 months in 1887. These people don't look too fucking happy. I wouldn't be either. I'd be chucking a freaking spear at you or shooting bow and arrows at your ass from out of there, if that was me. Of course, they'd shoot you if you did that and kill you, right? Here's Filipino natives posed for a photograph in 1887 after they were brought over to Madrid to take part in a human zoo. Do you think this guy looks too happy? This guy looks like he's thinking about, well, how am I going to chop you up and flambe your ass into a fucking meal later for what you did to me, right? These people don't look too happy. I wouldn't be. Zoo humano. Canibales australianos. Australian cannibals. Rare disfigurements. Lo más brutal que jamás se ha visto. Some of the most brutal things I think you've ever seen. Something like that, right, in Spanish. Here's Australian cannibals, right? They're saying, here's the indigenous of Australia who are not cannibals. I don't believe they ever were cannibals. Maybe they were. I don't know. Just so you know that human zoos existed, and the Bronx Zoo was no different. They did it as late as 1905. How paradise became a playground of sexual depravity for the rich and famous. What really happened on Epstein's private pedophile island, and will the luxury Caribbean retreat ever be open to the public again? Hopefully not. Remember, they were having Disney cruises going there. Remember the Disney kids going to the cruise to the Epstein Island with the scuba diving? Remember? Georgia official response to 315,000 ballots not properly signed. That means that you got a problem, right? That the 2020 election was Trump won. Well, what is that going to mean? What, you're just going to go back and just nullify the last 4 years of Biden? Well, you can't nullify the fact that he let all those people in the country, right? You can't change that. Gabbard suggested prominent Muslim group wants Sharia law. New Jersey City fires back. Gabbard said that the Council on American Islamic Relations ideology is antithetical to the foundation that we find in our Constitution. Yeah, I mean, there's parts of Brooklyn, there's a bunch of mosques right now. I don't know if they're having a call to prayer there. I don't think so, because there's too many complaints. But, there's a lot of mosques, there's a lot of Muslims in New York right now, for sure. Probably the most there's ever been. Learn the lesson of Christmas unity before politics tear us apart. Opinion piece, New York Post. Mystery unfolds after hundreds of shoes washed up on a beach from Victorian shipwreck. We got chemtrailed about 5-6 days ago, big time, right before all the storms hit. So they're lacing up the atmosphere on purpose to snow a lot. They're doing it on purpose. All these storms are on the major holidays that happen every major holiday now. Those are all fake, most of them. I was checking out a song that Modest Yahoo did a single with BLP Kosher called Anxiety. It was pretty good. I was checking that out. We need spirits like this to help us. Healing spiritual people that are I think, here to help us. Help us with music, to help heal us with sound, to help heal us with showing us what's happening to us, right? With pundits, with different people that are trying to wake us up in different ways. That all together, with all these different modalities of people trying to wake the public up, they are waking the public up little by little, right? Whether it's through comedy, whether it's through TikTok videos, whether it's through longer videos like these, whether it's through people like, Santo Bonacci doing his videos for all these years about astrotheology and showing you how the secretive groups like the Muslims and secretive groups like the Masons and the Rosicrucians and the Illuminati and other groups like these who were seeking to control humanity for many, many years, many, many decades, many, many different generations. Former Malaysian PM gets 15 years for money laundering and abuse of power. So you are seeing some former Malaysian, like PMs, like the Malaysian PM, some of I think it was the Singapore or was the Sri Lankan PM was also but not enough, right? None of the major players, none of the major European players like Germany, former German, you're not seeing those people go to jail. Maduro government announces release of 99 political prisoners. Well, we never went into Venezuela still, right? And how much does it cost a day to keep all these assets in the Caribbean on alert? It's a lot of money too, right? Mamdani's new lesbian FDNY fire chief never worked as a firefighter. Never worked as a firefighter. Right? When you're running the FDNY, which, they also, Mamdani says, well, a lot of the calls are not for fires, but a lot of them are. Close to half of them are, which means that half of the calls that she's going to be involved in, she doesn't have any idea how to fight that fire. She doesn't have any ideas how to better the fire department either. She doesn't know anything about their tactics, their weapons, what they use, right? The different stuff that the firefighter has at their disposal, tools and such, firefighting equipment. She has no concept of how these things work, how the fire department itself works. Why would you put somebody in there that doesn't even know the most basic thing about the fire department, which is how it runs, Why would you put that person in there to run the entire agency who hasn't done the time, who doesn't understand how the bureaucracy works, who has no concept of how it works at all, in fact? Why would you put that person in charge of all these people? And on top of that, they're a lesbian? With one of the most macho male-run agencies in the world? You're going to put that person in? That's going to be a problem. And you're doing it on purpose, right? So everything this guy does is on purpose to fuck it up, right? He's not doing anything for the betterment of the city so far. I mean, look at the people that you're choosing. You've put people into some of your government agencies who have been found out to be bigots when they've looked back and simply looked back into their some of their social media history a few years. You find out that they're a real bigot and they hate Jews. Was that on their resume? Because you didn't seem to look into anything in their social media history, or did you? And that's why you hired them, as I'm assuming. You hired them because they hate Jews. Just like you do, right? Italian authorities arrest 9 suspected of quietly funneling over $8 million to Hamas organizations. The veil has been torn. Times Square adds July 3rd ball drop for the nation's 250th birthday. So they're doing the ball drop in Times Square for the nation's... I never saw that before. Is that normal? No. But does the ball drop signify something else? I'm not sure. Maybe. It used to be they dropped an apple off the roof of the building there. Before they did the ball drop, they just drop an apple. Jewish group warned police of terror plot at Hanukkah event before Bondi Beach attack. So they were already warned by multiple people. I think Iran or some other group had warned them also and said, hey, you better watch out. There's people in your country, right? They knew. You knew that there was groups like this and others in your country that were making bombs and things and plans, and you didn't do anything, which means you wanted it to happen. So Kim Goldwyn finally came out with a report. I'll pin it back to the top. Apologies. It took her, that was the longest she's ever gone that I've listened to her. I think that was about 2 weeks without a report, which I started worrying about that. Oh, I gotta go all the way back down. Sorry, guys. I'm pretty much near the end of this report, and I'm pretty much at the end of all the reports, because basically we haven't seen the things that we need to see to let us know where we really are, as far as I'm concerned. Look at all these articles. I could show you 200 articles, but we're still, I don't feel much closer than we were before to really getting our freedom. And that's the problem, really. I can go through all these articles like this, but what's the end game of this is the question, right? How do we get to the end game of this? Musk blasts Mamdani's choice to lead the FDNY over lack of experience as a firefighter. Yeah, I mean, it's just so simple. Why do you continue to do this where you put a gay person in charge of the most macho group of guys agency in the entire city? Is it to cause a problem? Yeah. Yeah. You want all this angst. You want all this anger, right? But in the end, is it going to help you run the city better? No, it's going to be worse. Could somebody possibly lose their life because this person doesn't know what they're doing? Yeah. And then I was checking out, Ari finally came out after 2 weeks he was gone. So a lot of people went dark. As you can see, I took 11 days off. This has been the last report I've done in 11 days. There's a lot of information coming out, but we're still not seeing Trump do the right thing. Is he going towards free energy? No, he's not even talking about fusion. He's talking about, is he going to come out with fusion later now that he's already bought, a partnership in a fusion energy company? Well, it sure looks like he's going that way. And then he's going to, get to profit off of that? You can see there's a lot going on that doesn't make sense. It seems that the Trump administration is worried about the Epstein files. If they weren't, they would have put them out in their first term when they were in control of it, and they never did. And then they're saying, well, Biden could have put him out. Yeah, but you could have put him out. Why didn't you do it your first term? All those things were in the Epstein files back then. All those pictures and stuff. Why wouldn't those ever come out? Why didn't you use that as to force the deep state to capitulate even more with all the photos you had of Bill Clinton and these people? And why is it at this late stage coming out now? So, friends, I hope you're doing well. That was an incredible amount of information, and I got it done in under 2.5 hours. So, if I talk a little less, obviously. I hope you're well. I hope you're working out stretching, staying in your center space. As you can see, with the little bit that I have left, there was a lot of information about BCCI Bank. It entered into the United States. It tried to enter into the United States, but without much help because it didn't have the proper background to do so. BCCI had significant difficulties implementing this strategy due to regulatory barriers in the U.S. designed to ensure accountability. These barriers included a strong bias against any bank, such as BCCI, which did not have a primary regulator with the responsibility for conducting oversight on a consolidated basis of the foreign bank. What you have going on in the 80s is a lot of dirty shit, right? It's the United States is doing a clandestine proxy war against Russia in Afghanistan. And why we're doing that, how we're doing that is by training people, operatives like Osama bin Laden, who was an asset of the CIA. What are we training them to do? We're giving them rockets and weapons, and we're trying to train them on how to use it to kill the Soviet helicopters in the area, right? See Rambo 3. See the movie Charlie Wilson's War, right? Where we're sending over senators and Congress people to do illicit deals over there in Afghanistan, where we're funneling illegal monies to Afghanistan funneling into illegal shell companies to run a proxy war against the Soviet Union in the whole time they are in Afghanistan in the 80s, right? Which results in the Russians losing the Afghanistan war. And then, of course, they are also messing around while we're in there for the next 20 years selling the poppy there and messing around with the Taliban. Banks such as BCCI are created to funnel and clean a lot of this drug money, right, back in the 80s. So BCCI has a lot of problems. It's a small bank that's created overseas a long, long time ago in the 40s. Dirty Money, BCCI, the inside story of the world's sleaziest bank. Here's a book. It's part of the virtual library in the Justice Department. Virtual library houses 235,000 criminal justice resources. Here's a book about it called Dirty Money, BCCI, the inside story of the world's sleaziest bank. BCCI also engaged in a massive cover-up, hiding its illegal banking services by including fictitious loans in its accounts. In addition, BCCI executives used former heads of state to advance their fraudulent efforts. They also bribed local officials to spread the bank's influence across the U.S. and to avoid detection by government investigators. When the bank collapsed, $20 billion was missing. And depositors have been defrauded, right? Where'd the $20 billion go? Somebody's pocket, right? Here's BCCI Bank Epstein Web Tracker. Fast facts about the Epstein-BCCI connection. The bank, of Credit and Commerce International, was a global bank shut down in 1991 after regulators found massive money laundering, fraud, and other crimes. It was often nicknamed the Bank of Crooks and Criminals International. BCCI does not appear as a named entity in the major publicly released Epstein files, flight logs, court exhibits, or House oversight email dumps. There's no indication that BCCI Bank itself is listed in those official Epstein-related records. Some investigative writers and commentators on Epstein's early career argue that his 1980s company, Intercontinental Assets Group, IAG, operated in the same post-BCCI financial world as large, lightly regulated offshore banks, and in a few cases suggest that IAG cultivated a close partnership with BCCI. These claims are based on secondary reporting and interpretation, not on documents from the modern Epstein case. So just for the record, I want to make that clear so that we don't get sued, right? And they can't sue me because I said it's alleged. Several long-form essays link Epstein, BCCI, and Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi by describing how Khashoggi allegedly used BCCI for covert arms financing while also hiring Epstein's firm. Now, there's this other big thing. There's this huge party that goes on. I think it's in the 70s. It's like the to-do thing, right? Everybody's got to go to this thing. And I covered that briefly. I think it was somewhere in like Morocco or something like that. I can't remember. I'll try to find that party. But like everybody who's anybody went to that thing. And it was some like Khashoggi thing like that, right? It was some rich dude getting married, or his daughter was, or whatever it was, right? So there's BCCI. There's the whole scandal with Epstein. Is he connected to BCCI? It doesn't matter. He's connected to JP, certain other banks that we know is doing his bidding, like Chase. So if you can have Chase doing his bidding and banks like that, I couldn't see why he wouldn't have BCCI also. Is banks like this, there's many different banks that have been used to money launder. It's not that big of a thing anymore, right? We remember the whole thing with James Comey and certain banks like Commerce Bank and other banks that got caught in the 90s and 2000s money laundering, drug money money laundering for drug cartels. People like Comey were working on those things and trying to cover stuff like that up too, right? Because a lot of the drugs funds that they were trying to clean that money for was that Iran Contra money, and there was a lot of that money funneling through, right? When there were all that Barry Seal coke is coming into the country, all that money is being created. How do you clean it? You got to clean the money first before they could use it, right? These people had a big problem with trying to clean that much money, because when you try to clean big pieces enough money, it's going to be it's going to leave a trail at some point. People are going to, banking regulators will start to see it, and if they're not properly compensated and bribed, then you're going to get caught eventually by somebody, right? Whether it's the IRS, the Treasury Department, or somebody else. So friends, I hope you're well, working out stretching, staying in your center space. I hope to keep doing these shows as long as I can, but until we see some more concrete evidence come out of big arrests and people being actually held to account, I don't see what the point of it is. Just to keep pointing out that there's a fake Trump in the office there that keeps doing these executive orders and trying to kick out all these people, but not much else. I don't see a point in just reporting on the same old. So let's hope that soon we'll start to see some concrete things happen in this country, like big time arrests, where we can start to move forward and get some more information out, that because there's a lot of people who have been for a long time saying that certain things are happening, and that has never been validated by anybody in mainstream news. And until these certain things are validated and we know that they really have happened and are happening, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be called liars and cheats, and then there's some people who are just reporting on what's happening and not telling other people lies, and that they know things that they don't know. And that's part of this big problem, right? Is that there's so many people out there that are just lying to us, that pretend that they know stuff that's not true. And while they enrich themselves. And that has to end at some point soon, I hope. So friends, I hope you're well, working out stretching, staying in your center space. This is your friend, as always in New York, Ash, NPNP News, signing off for now.